We're going to get started. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our April the 15th, 2019 regular meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. We're here in the Government Services Building, and I would ask if you would please join me in the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we always do, we ask that you join us in a moment of silence, remembering all the good things in our lives, and also the brave men and women of our military that serve our country both here and abroad, and also locally our first responders and the brave men and women of our Sheriff's Department. And if things were brought into focus for us here locally with terrible tragedy of a murder of one of our FPC students, Curtis Gray. So I would ask you would think about Curtis and his family, and also think about the men and women of our Sheriff's Department that had to deal with that incident and keep us safe over the weekend. So please join me. Okay, thank you. We do have one addition to the agenda, and that's it'll be a update from General Services Director Heidi Petito, who's going to give us an update on the library cleanup immediately following the proclamations on today's agenda. And I believe that's the only addition, deletion, or change to the agenda. Unless, Commissioners, we have anything else. Nope. Okay. All right. So we have some announcements, and I will take care of those. As a reminder, our BOCC meetings are broadcast via YouTube, and due to the nature of the live streaming process, there may be unavoidable delays. When the meeting has concluded, it is typically posted within 24 hours and can be viewed again, in its entirety. Flagler County would like to ensure everyone receives important messages in a significant emergency or disaster. And as always, to sign up for our Alert Flagler or the Special Needs Registry, please visit our website, which is flaglercounty.org/emergency, or you can call 386-313-4200 for information or registration assistance. Our Flagler County's Water Safe event will be Saturday, April the 27th from 9 a.m. to noon at the Belterre Swim and Racket Club. And this involves community partners that have come together to increase awareness and provide water and sun safety education to our citizens. Please bring your families out for a fun-filled time while learning more about child safety. My granddaughter always has a good time when I bring her out to that. She looks forward to that the last couple of years, and we'll bring her again this year. A reminder, our county offices will be closed this Friday, April the 19th, in observance of Good Friday. We have a number of board and council vacancies that we're soliciting for, as we always do, and it's open to registered voters residing in Flagler County for a number of volunteer boards and councils. Some of these positions by law must be filled by persons currently representing certain occupations or residing in a specific area of the county, and these positions will remain open until filled, and please respond as soon as possible for consideration. We have 4 members of the Contractor Review Board needed, one for a plumbing contractor, roofing contractor, engineer or architect, and we also need one member of the public that's a consumer. We have 2 members needed for Economic Opportunity Advisory Council, one representing the finance, investment, and banking industry, and another one representing the life sciences industry, which would be hospitals, medical device manufacturing, research, pharmaceuticals, etc. We need one member for our Land Acquisition Committee, and we need one for our Tourist Development Council that would come from the tourist industry. As a reminder, again, all positions will remain open until filled. You can get more information at our website, flaglercounty.org, and it's listed under Advisory Board vacancies, or you can also contact Mari Davis at flaglercounty.org or 313-4094. A reminder, we have an announcement of some upcoming meetings. The next regularly scheduled meeting of our Board of County Commissioners will be Monday, May the 6th at 9 a.m. right here in the chambers. And we also have our first budget workshop of the season, and that'll also be Monday, May the 6th, and that'll be at 1 o'clock. And a change this year is that those meetings will be held here in the chambers rather than at the EOC as they have been in the past. So that's a reminder. One other announcement I'd just like to make is, again, we welcome public input. We would just ask for the clerk's benefit if you would please make sure you identify yourself so that she can record that for the record. So that's a reminder about that. We have some recognitions and proclamations to work on today. First is, and sadly, we're going to recognize the retirement of Miss Christy Mayer. And so I would call Human Resources Director Pam Wu up. And also, I think Mr. Cameron might have some part in this as well. So,
good evening, Pamela Wu, Flagler County Human Resources Director. On behalf of Flagler County Board of County Commissioners, I would like to congratulate Ms. Christy Mayer on her retirement that will take effect on April 30th. Christy started her tenure with Flagler County on October 4th, 2006, as the Executive Administrative Assistant to the County Administrator. Her valuable contributions to the daily operations of the administrative office will be sorely missed, as we should all strive to follow her stellar example. While Christy will be missed by all of us, she certainly is deserving of her retirement. Her hard work, dedication, and commitment have greatly benefited Flagler County, and her contributions toward our shared success will stay with us for a long time. With a grateful heart, we wish Christy all the best in her future endeavors. Christy, would you like to come up, Mr. Cameron?
Commissioners, I have spent a good bit of my adult life in executive positions, and I've worked with many executive assistants. Some of them not so good, some of them really good, but I have never worked with better than Christy Mayer. She has been a godsend to my coming to work here. I can honestly tell you that I am probably 60 days ahead of where I would have been had she not cleared the runway and helped to integrate me into the system and identified the problem areas. She is just absolutely superb. And she has just got a servant's heart. To watch her deal with the public, and their concern is her concern. And she never fails to get them to the right place or to solve the problem herself. And if it needs to come to me, she's right there, even if she has to interrupt something to make sure that that citizen is served. She has been a tremendous asset to Flagler County. And I can't tell you what an asset she's been to me in this period of time, because it was a steep learning curve here. Y'all had a few issues. And I just will be forever grateful. She richly deserves the best retirement anybody could have. And I will miss her. But I do want to tell you this, because of her servant's heart. She and Lucy played a huge part in picking her replacement, Ms. Maury Davis. And she has, it couldn't have been any more dedication to seeing Maury succeed. She has treated her as though she was her own daughter. And because of that, she is going to be able to leave with much less of a ripple than I would have anticipated. And Christy, forever grateful to you. God bless you, and may you have the best future ever.
Thank you very much, everybody. In looking back over my career here, I just had to do a little bit of math numbers because I'm that kind of person. I've served 16 commissioners and attended over 290 county commission meetings. Not even workshops, not budget workshops, just county commission meetings. I never thought when I took this job 12 and a half years ago that I would learn so much about government, both local, state, and national level. And it has just enriched me as a person as well, and hopefully as a citizen as I go into retirement. So I'm going to be able to say with honesty, I will miss everybody, but I'm looking forward to spending more time with my better half, and hopefully he is too. Thank you.
Well, hold on, Ms. Christie.
Thank you.
I think some of the commissioners might have something to say, too. And I would defer to you first, Mr. Erickson, because I think you've worked with her the longer. So anything you want to add?
Well, I talk about usually I got so much I can say. I'm surprised, but Christy, thank you for all the help and always being there when somebody needs you.
My pleasure.
You were always there, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right. Thanks.
I just have one word: professional. Just consummate professional. Really appreciate that.
I'd say along the same lines as everybody else, but what I notice is no matter how I feel or how bad things are going or whatever, you were always there, never changing. You're there with the answer, always willing to respond when we had a question.
Christy, wow. Are you sure?
Yes. That's okay. You can ask Pam. I can't go back now. The state's got my documents.
Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for allowing us to have her. I know she's been with us and been very devoted and very focused, and I know how it is when your spouse is pulled away. But I want to thank you personally, too. But, Christy, thank you for everything you've done. And, you know, out of all those commissioners, me being your favorite, no, I do want to say it's been an honor and a privilege, and I've enjoyed working with you. Your dedication, your commitment, and just your loyalty to this county. I don't know that you're ever going to be just a citizen in this county. You're always going to be part of Flagler County.
I don't know if Paul has his way. I'm not going to spend too much time home. We're going to travel a lot, so
Good for you.
see.
All right.
Good for
Well,
you.
be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Christie.
Thank you, Christy.
Yeah.
Can we put this down here?
Come up here.
No, within.
Go down.
Go down. We're going to go down.
Hey, is everybody ready? All smiles? So I'm going to do a couple. We have to make sure we have a great picture for Miss Christie. Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have some recognition for Flagler Volunteer Services, and I would ask Ms. Susie Gamblin and Judy Mazzella to please come forward. Hi, ladies.
Hello. Hi, my name is Susie Gamblin, and I'm with Flagler Volunteer Services. I just want to say before I get started with the volunteer stuff, which is my favorite part of this job, but I also wanted to say how much we appreciated working with Christy. Best of luck to you, Christy. It was a pleasure to work with her with all of our volunteer needs, too, and she was an amazing supporter of volunteerism, so we'll miss you a lot. I wanted to share with each of y'all some statistics about the volunteers and the activities that they did in 2018. So these are some volunteer statistics that were reported to our agency. 3,255 volunteers served 175,493 hours at 49 local government and nonprofit agencies in Flagler County in 2018. Those very big numbers. Really proud of the volunteers and all the work that they do. Based on the independent sector's value of a volunteer hour in Florida, which is $24.69, the volunteer hour served is valued at over $4 million. So it's a big value to our community. It's amazing. I can't even imagine what our world would look like without the volunteers that support it. This month, April, is National Volunteer Appreciation Month. And so we're out thanking all of our volunteers for what they do, whether it's something big or whether it's something small. It makes a big difference, not just to the places they serve, but to our community as a whole. Really affects our quality of life. We are busy recognizing volunteers. So right now, one of the things we're doing is accepting volunteer nominations for Volunteer of the Year, Volunteer Team of the Year, and the Brian Cooper Excellence in Volunteer Leadership Award, which we'll be giving out at our Continental Breakfast as an appreciation for our volunteers on April 30th. So anyone who knows anybody, we're still accepting those nominations right now. We've invited all of you, and I know most of you are going to be able to make it, so we're very excited and looking forward to seeing you on April 30th. What we're doing also is we're giving out our Presidential Service Awards. We give out gold level Presidential Service Awards, and these go out to volunteers that served over 500 hours during the year. We had 63 volunteers in Flagler County that did over 500 hours. So we're giving those out at various locations and different functions throughout the whole month of April. So we'll be giving out a handful here, a handful there. As you all know, volunteers don't do what they do for recognition. They do what they do because they want to make a difference. So we've invited a handful of volunteers tonight to come here today and be recognized. And I'm not exactly sure how many are here, but we wanted to call them up and just give them a quick award if they are here. Manny Confusion, George Dahl, William Flowers, Sandy Fraley, Brenda Hagedorn, Margaret Martz, Catherine Recker, Steve Ripley, Rich Santomazzino. How do you say his last name? Ed S. Ed S. Yeah. I don't want to destroy his name. Sarkowski. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. And Jan Sutton. So we have Steve here.
Hey, Steve. There you go.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then we just wanted to thank you all for all of your support, volunteerism. The county has been very generous to us and has always helped us with anything that we ask. Y'all have been amazing, and we really appreciate your support. It's, like I said, I can't imagine our community without our volunteers, and we couldn't do it without you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Judy.
You want to say anything?
Don't let them go.
Yeah, can you ask him if we would take a photo with
Oh,
him?
okay. Photo.
They come up for.
We'll just do it here. Maybe
Yeah,
you
you
guys-
can go right there. Yeah, I think they'll.
here we go. Everybody smile. A couple more. 1, 2, 3. Good. Thank you.
We need a
No, it's just recognition.
said proclamation.
So don't go away, ladies. Okay. We're now going to move into our proclamations, and first one is recognizing National Volunteer Month, as you just described. And I would ask Commissioner Erickson if he would read that proclamation for us, please.
Certainly, my pleasure. A proclamation of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners proclaiming April 2019 as Volunteer Month in Flagler County. Whereas April is Florida Volunteer Month, established as the official time to recognize and celebrate the efforts of volunteers at the local, state, and national level. And whereas volunteerism strengthens communities, improves social problems, and enhances the overall quality of life of all citizens, including children, seniors, those who are disabled, the impoverished, the imprisoned, the homeless, the physically or mentally ill, or those otherwise in need of assistance. And whereas volunteering changes the lives of volunteers in a positive way, increasing self-confidence, self-esteem, and physical well-being, offering the chance to meet new friends and associates, and providing opportunities to learn new skills and abilities. And whereas volunteerism is proven to have a positive influence on businesses that are socially responsible, increasing employee morale, loyalty, and teamwork, and building goodwill towards the company. And whereas nonprofits, charities, communities, faith-based groups, and national service partnerships in Flagler County have joined together with state and local governments in celebration and praise of volunteers who have given tireless and selflessness to the service of others. Now, therefore, the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners do hereby proclaim April 2019 as Volunteer Month in Flagler County and call upon residents of Flagler County to join Flagler County Volunteer Services in observing the month with appropriate activities, programs, ceremonies, and promoting the spirit of volunteerism in our community. Adopted this first day of April 2019, Tom Bexley, Clerk of the Circuit Court, and Donald T. O'Brien, Jr., Chair of Flagler County Board of County Commissioners.
You.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, thank you, ladies. Appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, recommend approval.
We have a
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That motion carries, passes unanimously.
I had a statement also.
Oh, yes.
Monday, we had a ceremony for the group down at Wickline Center that takes care of 310 Flagler residents who receive Meals on Wheels. Every Monday, these volunteers show up down at Belterre and pick up a week's supply of meals, frozen meals, for these individuals to receive. And these volunteers don't get reimbursed for gas. They don't get reimbursed. It's just a good feeling that all of them have. And they were recognized down there, and I was pleased to be partial spokesperson at the time, although I didn't know I had to talk. They made me talk. But it was great to pat them on the back and thank them for delivering those faithfully 52 weeks out of the year to the 310 individuals that I mentioned previously. But great group of volunteers we have there. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, next we're going to move into a proclamation recognizing skin cancer awareness. And is there anyone here from the Future Problem Solving Group?
There they are.
Great. All right. So as you're going to learn, these folks, these young students, worked on a project to, with the county, to install sunscreen dispensers at our county parks, and worked on this project throughout the year. Did a great job. I'm going to read the proclamation, and then maybe if you'd like to say a few words, that'd be great. Okay. So, a proclamation of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners recognizing May 2019 as Skin Cancer Awareness Month in Flagler County. Whereas skin cancer is the most common cancer in the U.S., and whereas each year over 5 million skin cancer cases are diagnosed in the U.S., and whereas more people are diagnosed with skin cancer each year in the U.S. than all other cancers combined, and whereas the annual cost of treating skin cancers in the U.S. is estimated at $8.1 billion, about $4.8 billion for non-melanoma skin cancers and $3.3 billion for melanoma. And whereas the cost of direct medical care for skin cancer cases attributable to indoor tanning is $343 million, and whereas skin cancer is the most preventable form of cancer in the United States, and whereas by raising awareness of the dangers of unprotected exposure and encouraging sun-safe habits, lives can be saved, and whereas awareness and education are the most effective tools in reducing this form of cancer. Therefore, join us in promoting the awareness and prevention of skin cancer in Flagler County during the month of May, and take an active role in the fight to end skin cancer. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners that they hereby proclaim May 2019 as Skin Cancer Awareness Month in Flagler County, Florida, and urge all citizens, interest groups, and affected persons to join us in promoting the awareness and prevention of skin cancer in Flagler County during the month of May, and take an active role in the fight to end skin cancer. Adopted this 15th day of April 2019, attested by Tom Bexley, Clerk of the Circuit Court, signed by Donald O'Brien, Chair of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners. Welcome. And please introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about the project that you work on.
My name is Jerry Berry. I am a teacher at Bunnell Elementary School, and I'm also the coach for the Community Problem Solvers at Bunnell Elementary School. And these fine sixth graders moving on next year to middle school have been instrumental and have learned so much about giving back to the community and have done a fabulous job implementing their plan. I'm very proud of them.
My name is Aaliyah Acevedo, and this project was very fun and interesting to do, and I had fun doing it.
My name's Deara Jones, and this, like she said, is like a very fun project to do, and I feel good about helping our community and being a part of people not getting skin cancer.
My name is Austin Ziegler, and this project was a very fun project. We had a lot of fun doing it this year, and that's it. My name is Darian Marushnik, and I think this project is like interesting, and I think that I'm happy about how I'm a big part of something like in my community and helping people.
Hi, my name's Ella Bradstrup. This project was very important, and I'm happy we could get the sunscreen dispensers installed.
Hey, and I want to say thank you for giving us the opportunity to work with you. It was an honor, and you know, we really appreciate the work, and you're doing good things, and it's going to help our community. I also want to thank Miss Lucy Dance for helping to coordinate this, along with Miss Petito and Frank Barbuti from Parks and Rec to get this done. So we appreciate that. And we have one other.
We have one other fine gentleman here.
Ryan Gilberry.
Say what you thought about your project.
I thought it was a very good project because we made a great impact on Flagler County.
Well, thank you, Ryan. Ryan, you're all over the place. You were walking in heels on Saturday, so you're just...
This man gets around town.
He sure does. We're proud of you. All right.
Thank
Very
you
good.
to all of you, county commissioners and the citizens of Flagler County. I hope that you find that these sunscreen dispensers are worthy and are useful and that you do take advantage of them. I know one of the Parks and Rec gentlemen who helped install them said it was the first time he'd ever worn sunscreen in his whole life. He's 6 years old, so that is amazing. And we do have additional dispensers that I brought with me tonight for other installations that we had discussed. So I do have those as well in the lobby as well. But thank you so very much for helping us succeed in our project and showing that perseverance and a good plan can have awesome results.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So our specialty is taking photos, especially when there's kids involved, because, you know, we're all politicians. So if you wouldn't mind joining us up front, we would appreciate it. And let me give that.
Are you ready? We'll get this done real quick. 1, 2, 3, big smiles. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it.
Good job, guys. Good job. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the Skin Cancer Awareness Month proclamation.
Second.
We had a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. That motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
I wish I had heard that conversation 52 years ago.
yes, sir.
I've had this ugly scar on my forehead since I worked outside with my dad when I was probably these kids' age. Showed up as a little red spot on my forehead. The doctor took it off, said everything's fine. 5 years later, that thing blossomed like a baseball. And
Yes, sir.
it does, in fact, really make you scared at times.
Sure does. Appreciate you sharing. Okay, third proclamation is 911 Public Safety Telecommunications Week. I apologize about my speaking today, and I'd ask Commissioner Hanson to read that one for us, please.
Sheriff, if you'd come up, please. A proclamation of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners designating the week of April 14th through 20th, 2019 as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week in Flagler County, Florida. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require law enforcement, fire, or emergency medical services, and whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of law enforcement officers, firefighters, and emergency medical personnel is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our law enforcement officers, firefighters, emergency medical personnel is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Flagler County Communications Center. And whereas public safety telecommunications are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas public safety telecommunications are the single vital link for our law enforcement officers, firefighters, and emergency medical personnel by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information, and ensuring their safety. And whereas the public safety telecommunications of the Flagler County Communications Center have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suspension of fires, and treatment of patients. And whereas each communications employee has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the past year. Now, therefore, the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners do hereby proclaim the week of April 14th through 20th, 2019, as National Public Safety Telecommunications Week in Flagler County, in honor of the men and women whose diligence, professionalism keep our city and our citizens safe. Adopted this 15th day of April 2019, attested by Tom Bexley, Clerk of the Circuit Court and Comptroller, and signed by the Flagler County Board of Commissioners Chair, Donald T. O'Brien, Jr.
The Commission, Mr. Chair, we greatly appreciate you recognizing these unsung heroes. You hear their voice, but you never really get to see them. They do a phenomenal job this week. We're recognizing them a lot. This is part of that. I will tell you that today I spent a couple hours being a dispatcher, I should say more as a partner than actually dispatching. But today started out, they never know what they're going to get when they say on that call, 911, what's your emergency? And today started out on day shift with 911 call, medical emergency. And while the paramedics are responding, the dispatcher is providing how-to guidance to do CPR. And so that's just one example. And Christina Mortimer is our director of the Communications Center, and I'll see if she would like to say something.
Just want to say on behalf of all the men and women in the Communications Center, we appreciate the support. As Sheriff stated, they are the unsung heroes, and they are the voices that they're heard, but they're rarely seen. So just on behalf of all of them, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Two of us, you're going to have to smile twice as long. Okay. Ready? Here we go. Warren will be good. Hang on, though.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the proclamation recognizing the 911 Public Safety Telecommunications Week.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Okay, we do have one presentation, and that was the addition to our agenda, and that's an update from Ms. Heidi Petito, General Services Director, regarding our library cleanup efforts, I guess.
Good evening. Heidi Petito, General Services Director. We just wanted to give you a quick update now that our cleanup activities have finished. As you all know, the Palm Coast, or the Flagler County Library, located in the heart of Palm Coast, the county had received mounting complaints with regard to that homeless encampment that was in the wooded area behind the library. It's approximately 8 acres. This was a very complex and complicated issue that we were dealing with, not only with legal and social issues, but also compounded with some civil rights component. Staff had developed a plan of action trying to keep the homeless in place while we were working to address the concerns that the public had brought forward. This was a coordinated effort. We met with myself and my staff, land management, the library director, we had legal representation, as well as social services and the sheriff's office. Work started on March 11th. It took approximately 1 month. Did take a little bit longer, and that was due to working around the homeless encampment as we kept them on site. Here are some photos that were taken before the cleanup. I'll just quickly go through these. This was one of the main roads. You'll see this in a follow-up picture. You can see the close proximity to the stormwater pond. This is what it looks like now if you're in the parking lot on the west side of the library looking into the woods. This is from the woods looking back at the back of the library. This is that road where you saw that huge encampment and debris. And this is what it looks like now around that pond. Just to provide a summary, the cleanup of the 8 acres resulted in 211 cubic yards of trash. We also encountered 14 cubic yards of human waste, countless amounts of drug paraphernalia. We were able to mitigate the potential for brush fires by going in there and underbrushing the entire site and removing any downed trees that we came in contact with. And we also cleaned up the front of the library to gain some exposure by lifting the trees so that we didn't have security cameras and parking lot lights that were obscured. And this wouldn't have been possible. It was a huge undertaking by the county. I just want to say thank you to everybody that was involved in the process. My staff was out there on site performing daily cleanup. I'd like to thank Sheriff Staley and his office for their daily presence and coordination out there. It was tricky in the beginning until we could get things better situated, better coordinated with keeping them on site. And I can't thank enough the Sheriff's inmate work crew for their invaluable contribution to this cleanup effort. And that should do it.
Right. Commissioners, any questions or comments?
I'd like to comment or commend the sheriff on the uniforms that his prisoners wear. Those are distinctive.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
If I may, a huge amount of credit goes to Heidi for this. She has had this thing as her project for a month, and she did this with very little direction and supervision other than the goals we wanted to achieve. She was the author of how to do this. Once we found that there was no really good place to move them to within Flagler County, how to accommodate it on site. She had to deal with some really serious problems of how to handle a large amount of human waste and dispose of it properly. She had to work DEP and vendors specialized in that. She coordinated a bunch of people in doing that, and it brought us to a better place. We still have to address the situation, or we will end up right back in the same condition if we don't come up with a solution. And we are diligently working on that. It's a tough issue nationwide. The courts have pretty tightly prescribed what you can and can't do with regard to that, and there is a compassion factor too. Is that you want to treat people as human beings, and Heidi has worked through that, and we're intending to continue to work through it to come up with a viable solution for that. Both at the library but countywide, we need a solution. I just wanted to commend her for a tremendous job, and it's typical of what I'm running into with staff that you can give them broad direction, and they really perform at a very high level.
Okay. Commissioner Sullivan?
I just wanted to say, of course, the same thing for Heidi and what they did there. And I also wanted to mention that our library director, Holly Abernathy, was also involved in this process. And while this was going on, the big project of cleaning it up, we as a commission also, we approved some additional cameras for the library. We declared a green zone around the library, so we now have a way of keeping people from sleeping up against the building in the evening and that kind of thing. The additional security, and finally, we upgraded the coding around the library for use and access. So I think it's been a real combination effort. The biggest part, of course, being the cleanup, which really changes the look over there.
Thank you. Commissioner Mullins?
Heidi, I want to say thank you. From being a commissioner that's been very active over there and walking through and seeing it, it definitely looks better. And want to thank your guys. That was a mess over there. I seen buckets and buckets of needles, and I walked by and checked on your guys, and they continuously were working hard. They were risking their life in there and just looking out for this county. I do want to reiterate, this isn't done. I mean, there are tents popping up back there. They're not just in that area. They're all over. This is from neglect for many, many, many years. Past commissions have not addressed this issue. We are going to address this issue. I will make sure of that. I agree with our county manager. We have to be humane. I don't think it's humane to leave anyone in that environment, and I'm not going to. situation over there we're addressing in the Public Safety Coordinating Council and looking at different laws for the panhandling, the putting tents up everywhere, also making sure that we are working with organizations like the Salvation Army and different organizations like that to place them. I also have talked to many different cities and different areas who have addressed the homeless situation. They have boldly done it as long as it's addressed in a proper way and we're remembering these individuals are human beings. It's no problem to do it. And I think that's something as a commission that we need to be very active and end here in Flagler County. And the way you end it is you have a procedure. You have legislation, you have assessment, and you have placement of these individuals. Not all of them want to go somewhere. They want this as a lifestyle, but they're not going to do it in Flagler County. Not in throw trash and do stuff like that. But this isn't the only place. I flew over the county and saw several other tents. I do want to ease everyone and say there's none up US 1. There's none up behind the church up there. But there are some over by the Bunnell Elementary School, which is very concerning. There's some by the Methodist Church over in Bunnell. And there is some starting up right by the Coles. So those have to be addressed, and we've got to do it countywide. The cities have shown full cooperation. They're ready to address it, and we are going to do something about this soon. So feel safe and feel confident in that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Anything else, Commissioners? No? All right. We will move into the community outreach portion of our agenda. And as a reminder, this is a 30-minute time period allocated for public comment on any consent agenda item or topic not on the agenda. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to address the commissions. And as a reminder, speakers should approach the podium and please identify yourself and direct comments to the chair. Public comment, community outreach is now open.
Hello, my name is Dennis Clark. I live in the Hammock, and you knew we weren't going to stop. We're going to keep going here. I'm appearing before you today because I'm disappointed that some major topics were not addressed at the last workshop on Bing's Landing. Specifically, what is your position regarding stewardship of properties purchased with environmentally sensitive land funds? There was $2.5 million of taxpayer-funded ESL funds were spent on acquiring this beautiful, historic, and unique park. An additional $1 million was spent on the park from Florida Communities Trust funding and other improvement grants. The relocation and expansion of a restaurant within the park is not consistent with the environmentally sensitive land program, as it elevates the level of commercial use beyond what was intended. The daughter of Dolores and Charlie Yant stated that her parents sold Bing's Fish Camp to the county at a lower price than other buyers offered because it would remain as a park for the public. As you know, when the first captain's lease was approved in 2011, the Board of County Commissioners' concern was, and I quote, protecting the county's park systems and natural views and do not want any addition to take away from the park. The original intent was for a small bait tackle and takeout concession that would not do harm to the park. We feel that any proposed commercial expansion in the park is a breach of the public trust, and that aspect should be addressed by the commissioners. It's even written into the lease. I'm not going to read it verbatim. People have asked me, how does Flagler County benefit financially from this restaurant and its proposed expansion? I have a hard time answering that question. So my question to you is, what is your position regarding properties purchased with the ESL funds, and do you plan to abide by the principles and objectives stated in the Flagler County ESL manual and your own comprehensive plan? You should read page 10 of the ESL manual and the rest of it if you want. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Next speaker, please. Thank you.
My name is Wanda Christie, and I live in the Hammock. Because I will not be here for the meeting on May 6th, I am here to comment on the lease between the county and Captain's Barbecue at Bing's Landing. I have presented you with documents of the county's reports and statements made regarding this situation pertinent to my point. Quoting Mr. Hadid in previous statements, as a landlord, the county has a duty to ensure reasonable operation of tenant business with minimal interruption and to provide peaceful enjoyment and quiet possession in their tenants, which we have done. So much so that in August of 2016, captains exercised their option to extend their lease at Bing's Landing for an additional 5 years, 1.5 years early. In October of 2016, Hurricane Matthew caused substantial damage with the storm surge, and again in 2017, Hurricane Irma caused significant intercoastal flooding. According to Mr. Hadid, in October 2018, he was notified that the lease needed to be restructured because of the condition of the building based on staff reports. January 23, 2019, Universal Engineering Services reported in a letter to Mr. Herrera, Section 2, the concrete subfloor showed evidence of flooding and ponding water, and several areas of the flooring and subflooring are soft and pliable, and failure is imminent. February 21, 2019, Mike Dixon's report states flooding that occurred from Hurricanes Matthew and Irma inundated the concrete subfloor. In the April 3rd workshop, Mr. Hadid stated, and I quote, the building was gradually deteriorating and that examination of the floor joist showed substantial deterioration. He also stated that recent water events stacked a lot of water in there, specifically naming Hurricanes Matthew and Irma. In that same workshop, Mr. O'Brien asked Mr. Hadid why he did not see an act of God statement in the lease. Mr. Hadid stated that acts of God are governed by common law. He then continued, and I quote, we would not be found to be in breach of the lease if by an act of God the facility was destroyed in some way that made it inoperable. So my argument is that by the county's own reports, the deterioration of the building was caused by Hurricanes Matthew and Irma being acts of God. Considering those facts, according to the county attorney, the lease could be terminated on the grounds that the building was irreparable and the county would have no further obligation. Additionally, in the April 3rd workshop, Commissioner Hansen asked Heidi Petito, and I quote, do we have some degree of confidence that we could maintain the old building long enough to build a new building at option 2 location? She responded, yes. We would have to continue to go in there and continue to do what we are doing now just to make it through that process. Commissioner Hansen again asked, do you have confidence we could do that? Mrs. Petito responded, we could. I know none of you want to continue to put money into this building to rebuild. The county is going to do that anyway for an extended building process. They could either continue to the end of the lease or simply say they're not going to do any more repairs, the building is damaged beyond repair, terminate the lease, no further obligations or liability. These are county reports and facts and must be considered as options regarding the situation. To limit your decision to who builds the building, on which location, and what size would be negligence of the board when there are other legitimate options. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Ms. Christie. Next speaker, please.
My name is John Mampy. I also live in the Hammock and made comments on the Bing's Landing workshop. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough time to stress a few other points. One of those is my brother had an interest in a restaurant in Fells Point, Baltimore. After about 15 or 20 years of operation of that business, Baltimore approved rebuilding of 2 buildings on the block with the proviso that the facades be preserved. Due to the construction interference with traffic on the block, the restaurant was forced to close after about a year and a half, suffering with that interruption. If anyone thinks that captains will not be seriously impacted by construction at the option 2 site, he or she is not thinking clearly. Second, the workshop, after the workshop, I and 3 other members of the HCA met with Mr. Goodman at the Option 2 site to get an idea of what his ideas were. He expressed his desire to build an L-shaped building beginning about midway in the existing pavilion, extending towards the river, then turning north towards the sidewalk near the entrance of the basin. I was absolutely shocked by how much of the current open land his desire consumed and how his idea for the restaurant would almost assure that the existing uses on that peninsula would be rendered useless. Other public uses of the land near the prospective restaurant, other than use of the fishing pier and the stormwater retention area for public use. Now imagine you were one of the many people that were married at wedding services at Bing's over the last 15 or 20 years, and you want to come back for a reunion, and in its place, all you find is a restaurant. The public park would have been converted into a commercial establishment. My personal recommendation is to either keep the existing building habitable until the lease runs out, or let captains use food trucks up at the north end near the caretaker's cabin while the existing building is demolished, any archaeological digs are completed and rebuilt at that existing site. There need not be liability to the county for that purpose. I implore you, no matter what you do, to require that any actual decision be based on real drawings showing the elevation of a proposed building and how much of that land area would be gobbled up by such building. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
My name is Mike Cochiola, and I need to bring attention back to the issue of the homeless. Now, that presentation certainly showed a bad situation, and cleaning it up was a good thing. But that presentation demonized the homeless. You would think, after looking at that presentation, that they're all dirty and they're all dangerous and they're all drug users. That is not the case. I didn't see one word on that presentation or hear one word from the speaker about the circumstances that brought those people to that wood. These are human beings. They have fallen on hard times for a lot of reasons. Yes, some are drug addicts, but some are homeless because they missed a paycheck or 2 or 3, or their spouse died and they couldn't afford their home, or they are sick, or they are mentally ill. They are there for reasons, and there was not one word in that presentation about them as human beings. You would think, based on that presentation, that you were shoveling out a zoo and the animals are being accused of being dirty and dangerous. Well, these are human beings. And I'm going to go with Joe Mullins, Commissioner Mullins, on this thing. That presentation was as much a testament to the neglect of this community, of the homeless, a growing problem. If we do not do something, and do something well and good and fast, you're just going to see that trash pile grow. We have to deal with this. We cannot allow people to be living in the woods like that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, George Mayo, Palm Coast. As most of you know me, I'm a frequent visitor of the meetings here. I always usually come with several questions to ask or petitions on behalf of myself or the community. I have a few of them, but I rise only to sing the praises of Christy Meyer, and I want to thank her for her commitment and her duties to Flagler County. Whenever I had questions, and I would get a call the next day with answers, people's names, phone numbers, whatever it required. And a couple years ago, I had knee replacement surgery, so I wasn't able to attend for a while. And lo and behold, I got a get well card from Christy Meyer. Where else have I ever dealt with governments that you get a get well card from somebody in government? So I just personally want to thank her and wish her well and a long and happy and healthy life. Thank you, Christy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo. Next speaker, please.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Todd Swinderman. I'm a resident of the Hammock and our favorite topic, Bing's Landing. I'm here this evening to ask you once again to consider the Hammock Community Association's request to have an outside independent professional inspect the building to see if repair is possible. We'd also like to renew our request for more of the detailed information on how the county arrived at their cost estimates. The people who support us in the Hammock Community Association are concerned that the Commission has already made up their decision, and we're just going through the motions here now to come to an inevitable decision to build a large restaurant in a small park. From my point of view, I'm an engineer, and I haven't seen much creativity in trying to solve this problem. I've offered a few suggestions, and you might wonder why our association feels that this is a predetermined outcome. Well, there's been almost a fanatical expression of concern over liability. Our organization has presented ways to manage that liability, and our attorney has expressed opinion that some of these liabilities don't exist. So it just seems like our suggestions are being ignored. If the county had a genuine interest in trying to keep that restaurant in the place that it's at, we would think that you would be using some value other than the ridiculously low insured value for that building. It's my opinion, with a little bit of creativity and probably community involvement, and allowing us to get in there and inspect and come up with some creative ideas, that we might be able to come up with a plan that repairs that building for less than half of even the insured value. So I'd like to also add that there hasn't been any demonstrated public benefit to rearranging this park for Captain's Restaurant. It is in the public's interest to make sure that we can answer the questions from the 1,700 people that have signed our position on the outcome of this whole project. We would like to see all of the options adequately explored, and once again, I renew our request for access to the building so that we can have an outside professional look at it maybe from a different point of view.
Thank you, Mr. Swinderman.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
I'm Steve Hatcher. I live in the Hammock, and I have a question for the commissioners regarding the current proposal to connect Bing's Landing to the DCDD septic system. Mr. Cameron told one of my friends that the county plans to proceed with this project at county expense because, and I quote, it needs to be done. The current capacity of the system is 2,700 gallons a day. Park patrons require 650 gallons, and the restaurant requires the rest, or 76% of the capacity. In 2016, Captain's was using 44% of the system. They increased their seating to 100 seats in 2016, which brought them up to maximum capacity. And then for quite a while, they were operating at 118 seats, which was over capacity. The current 2011, the current lease is from the 2011 lease. That lease requires Captain's to pay for septic system enhancements required for the restaurant. So my question to you is, why is the county planning to pay for the connection to the DCDD system when the lease requires that the Captain's Restaurant pay for this connection?
Thank you, Mr. Hatcher. Next speaker. And we will address that when we're finished here, okay, sir? Yes.
Oh. My name is Dr. Lynn Bravo Rosewater, and tonight I'm addressing you as a clinical psychologist, and I'd like to talk to you about figure ground, the concept that you can look at a picture and some people can see one thing and some can see another. The classical is you see a vase or you see the profile of a woman, and that's figure ground. And I think that that's what's happening with Biggs Landing. We have figure ground. We have two very different pictures here. Some of the county commissioners see getting a new restaurant at whatever price, because we don't know the price yet. So that $1 million that's been thrown around, we don't know what that is, as a win. But the other view of Biggs Landing is that this is a public park that's popular for boaters, fishing enthusiasts, bicyclists, history buffs. People like to walk its beautiful paths, and families with children who enjoy the water, the boats, and the children's playground. The pavilion that would be torn down if you build in your option site is where many, many people have gotten married. They can have their ceremony right by the water. Then they have a pavilion, and it allows people that don't have lots of money to be able to have a celebration that's beautiful. And once you remove that pavilion and put it behind that restaurant, that's not going to be available anymore. But Biggs is a public park that was paid for with, as we've talked about, state money, government, federal money. It is worth $4 million you put in to buy this land, improve this land, put these walking paths in, put the bicycle paths in. And a big restaurant is not a good fit for this small park. What you have there, what you had there, okay, a takeout restaurant, you want to get on your boat, you want a sandwich, you're going to have a picnic with your family, you can eat inside or you can buy food and you can sit outside and eat. And this is how the park has historically been used. But if you put in a big restaurant, you now have the need to give that restaurant adequate parking, which means that over half the spaces at Biggs Landing would be parking for the restaurant. You say we can add more parking. But adding more parking means less more parking spaces, and we're afraid what we're going to end up with is a big restaurant and a big parking lot, and the people that use this park are not going to have space to do the things that they do. So it seems to me that you've got a $4 million asset to take care of. I hope you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bravo Rosewater. I apologize. Okay. Speaker. Hello.
Catherine Rosansky. I'd like to begin by thanking Sheriff Staley and his team for trying to keep Palm Coast safe. Another thank you to Mr. Mullins for responding to me via social media. The mayor of Palm Coast has not replied to 2 emails. Although the pictures just shared of the homeless show great improvement, they failed to show that the encampment is still there and people are still living there. I would like to know the plan for the homeless living in these tents in Palm Coast. I am tired of being told by Palm Coast representatives that this is a county jurisdiction and they can't do anything. The presentation tonight can't be the end. An April 2nd headline by County Commissioner Erickson says, "I think we're making some progress, but it's hard to measure." There has to be a better answer than that. I hear what was shared tonight about the next steps, and I appreciate that. Keep the citizens informed, and if that means getting more services, get the services. Palm Coast just approved $5 million for pickleball and a splash park. It disgusted me. I would hope that the county reps and the Palm Coast reps would talk and discuss what is needed immediately in our city. It doesn't seem to me that they do.
Thank you, Ms. Rosansky. Next speaker, please.
Wish we had more than 3 minutes. Jane Gentile, Youth Plantation Bay. I will miss Christy very much. She's been wonderful to me all these years and put up with me, so she deserves a medal. Bing's Landing, tell them to go take a hike. You know, it's our park. Okay, Plantation Bay Water System. Thank you, Mr. Erickson. February 6, 2013, Charlie said he did not feel a city or county government should own a utility, but he was willing to right a wrong as long as they lived up to the commitment to provide a quality product with the Board of County Commissioners. Today is April 15th. How could we forget this day? Tax day. April 26, 2013, before the county bought the facility, the consent order was issued. The consent order cited irregularities was issued to Plantation Bay Utility at 2379 Bevel Road, the same exact address as the current applicant for an additional 97 homes who just completed 141 homes. And the original consent order says that violations were going on since 2010. Well, the former commission decided to buy the facility, even though Barbara Revels herself said then, former commissioner, that she didn't think that the county should do this either, but the people in Plantation Bay deserve better. 6 years later, our bills are doubled. We have petitions that our chair hasn't even bothered to read, 151 people who are paying for all the mistakes of your predecessors and yourselves. And we have idiot attorney, my opinion, at FDEP who says that an appeal that the county should have filed, that was filed by Joan Affitato and myself, although we didn't go to college, we've been given 15 days to amend our appeal. That said there's no relationship between the original recipient of the consent order and the people building when it's the same address owned by the same person. And it wasn't a consent agreement, it was a consent order. So you have people at DEP who aren't reading anything. Then we have our county attorney who says he can't do anything unless the commission directs him to. Why do I have to write an amended appeal? This commission is responsible. DEP's own rules say consent orders cannot be assigned. Period. Mr. Hadid doesn't have that rule. You need a new county attorney, and I'm telling you what, you're not going to put in, I'm so glad there was a meeting today. Thank you for the meeting, Mr. Cameron. I'm not going to pay for a new facility. You need to go after Maury Husseini. You took over this facility, stuck it on our backs. You need to read the petition. You need to hear our petition. We pay your salary.
Next speaker. Thank you.
Carl Andre, West Side, totally different subject. Recycling out there is a hit and miss proposition. I had a recycling bin out there last week. I left it out to see if they'd pick it up. They didn't pick it up. You call there and usually you get the answer is that their truck is down. This week, today when I left about 4:30, recycling still hasn't been picked up. And if it continues like this, people aren't going to recycle because they never know. When you separate garbage all week and then put it out there and then it doesn't get picked up, you're stuck with a blue box full of stuff. So I don't know what's going on, but it needs to be. And it's not like you can't pay because it's already deducted from your taxes, so, or not taxes, but sent with the tax bill. And I haven't seen the garbage contract in a long time, but I think you pay extra for them to recycle. And it's just not happening out there.
Thanks, Carl. We'll get an answer with Mr. Cameron there for you.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Roberta Paletta, Halifax Plantation. I just finished reading a book called The Library Book by Susan Orlean. And I bring it up because in there, it's based on the City of Los Angeles main library building. It's a convoluted story behind it. But on pages 72 through 74, it deals with what the main library has been doing with the issue of the homeless, how to meet their needs, and also the safety of the library staff. So I'd like to put it on record, if you can get a copy. If I can make copy, I didn't have time to make copies before coming, but I would really suggest that you read pages 72 through page 74, because the library director deals with community outreach and coordination within the city of Los Angeles, which, like other cities, large and small, have a huge homeless problem. Another source I'd like to bring to your attention would be the current issue of National Geographic. In a city, San Diego, there's a lot of working poor who do not have access to affordable housing, and so they end up living in their cars. It could be single people, older people, families with children. And what the city of San Diego has done, in conjunction with civic organizations such as churches, has created a program called Safe Lots. And in coordination with the sheriffs and the safety officials, people are allowed, who live in their cars, are allowed to come and park there. They have access to the organization's restroom facilities during the overnight hours. So they have a safe place to sleep in their cars and for their children to be, unfortunate as it is. So I just wanted to bring those things to your attention. I know that we're grappling with a huge national problem. We see it localized. And as they say, the personal is political, which is why we're all here. So I just wanted to draw that to your attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, maybe it'd be important to mention to the past speaker here tomorrow at, I guess it's the 17th at 8:45 a.m. at the EOC is the next Public Safety Council meeting, and I'm sure the homelessness will be discussed at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Erickson. Any other speakers as part of our community outreach portion here? Okay, seeing no one approach the podium, I will close the community outreach portion of our agenda. There was a lot of comments, but some specific questions. Mr. Cameron, if I'm not mistaken, we had an outside engineering firm fully assess the Bing's Landing, our building there, correct? The restaurant building?
Yes, sir. We that was before my time, so I'm not aware of the full scope of it. I myself have gone out and through fiber optic cameras taken a look at what's going on under there, and it's a pretty serious situation. I have a construction background from another life, and I was alarmed by what I saw.
But the fact is, we had an independent firm outside of a county staff do a complete report on the building, the structural integrity of the building.
That's what I'm
correct?
informed.
We received it in our last agenda, correct? It's in our agenda packet from, and I see Ms. Petito shaking her head there. So, second thing, with respect to the cost for connecting to the sewer system, if we go that direction, that's something that's not settled as to who may or may not pay for that. That's part of things we're negotiating, correct?
That's not settled, and really it is in a way a separate issue because we have a septic system that's ending the near of its lifespan, and it would be not good leadership to put another septic system in there by an estuary. So regardless of who ends up doing what, as that septic tank edges out, we should seek something different than to put in another septic system in an area that's very near an estuary.
Okay.
That is the connection that would go there would be a temporary, because Palm Coast is planning to run sewer system down to the area of Bing's Landing, and when that happened, we would just connect into their system. It would be going on to sewer instead of septic before that connection got there, but the connection to the other location would be a stopgap measure.
And with respect to the recycling service on the west side.
Yes, unfortunately, that's not the only complaint. We've had a number of complaints. I've talked with Ms. Petito on that on a couple of occasions. We are piggybacked onto another contract. As soon as I can clear the deck of some of these other problems, we're going to have to number one, have a real sit down with that vendor. And number two, if we can't come to a resolution, we're probably going to have to go out for RFP to take a look at other providers. There is a problem because the vast majority of the customers are in Palm Coast, and whether we could get someone that was interested in providing for the rest of the county, excluding Flagler Beach because they have their own, and whether we could get somebody to step up and want to do that remains to be seen. We may approach municipalities like Flagler Beach and see if they'd like to contract it, but we definitely have to do something to improve service. I have a meeting as I was going to report later on with the Palm Coast city manager, the new one, and I want to address that issue with him at the time that we meet.
Mr. Chairman, can I add to, I've gotten hundreds of messages that I've forwarded to Mr. Cameron about the trash service all over the county, not just in the west side, but it is all over in the concerns. And it was something I was going to say under commissioner comments, but Waste Pro needs to step it up, or they need to go. Bunnell has its trash service. They do their own, and they would certainly be a good option to look into for the west side. But, you know, all over the county, we need to, this should not be a problem. We're subbing it out. The company should be providing what they're supposed to. And it's just too many people throughout the county that are saying the same thing.
Okay. All right. We'll move on to the consent agenda, and we'll start with any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda. Commissioner Erickson?
None right now.
Commissioner Hanson?
I have none.
Commissioner Sullivan?
None.
None, Commissioner Mullins? And I do not have any.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Hanson and a second by Commissioner Erickson to approve the consent agenda as presented. I'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving on to general business, we have item 8A, and that's discussion of a request for the board to select the future location of the Sheriff's Operations Center. And Mr. Cameron, we'll leave that to, Michael.
Good evening, Commissioners. Michael Esposito, Special Projects. If you'd indulge me a second, I wanted to just thank Christy Meyer for her support and her professionalism before you run out. For me, since I've been at the county, I want to thank you, and I hope you enjoy your retirement. All right, so we're here tonight to talk about the future location options for Sheriff's Operations. Staff has put together 4 options for you tonight. As we go through each option, I tried to keep the options to 1 slide if possible, and additional slides have been included for clarification. So the first option we have is remain as we are until a resolution is reached on the existing facility. If you looked at the original staff report, we had there's no funding for this. There's also there would be no source funding for it. We go through each one of these options as a pros and cons. So for the pros, there's no additional funds needed. For the cons, right now it's dysfunctional to the sheriff's operations and has fragmented his unity of command. Number two, it deprives the department of essential functions such as training and interview rooms, private offices for investigative functions, and access of deputies to their patrol commanders. The third one is disruption of the clerk's operations. Okay, so if you have any questions, just stop me. If not, we can go through the options and talk about them.
I have a question.
Sure.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, please.
As far as I know, there's been no new information concerning testing results or movement on the legal cases concerning the old building since we've been briefed previously on.
For those answers, I would defer to the county administrator and the county attorney.
No, sir. We're moving forward with procuring the testing that was recommended in the last test results.
Okay.
Yeah, Michael.
Moving on. Option 2, expand the presence in the courthouse until a resolution is reached on the existing facility. The funding would be approximately $10,000. That would be from general fund reserves. So the pros and cons. It would improve, but not adequate operational efficiency of the sheriff's department. Right now they're on several floors. That would be condensed to a single floor. It's also a minimal out-of-pocket cost. The cons, it improves the sheriff's department functionality, but remains far from acceptable for operational efficiency. And it's further disruption of the clerk's operations. Option 3, this is 2 slides, is to use the former Sears building and lease space at Commerce Park. I put up the graphic here just so you understand where both of those buildings are, their addresses, and kind of locations. So if we talk about funding, it depends on these lease options. I tried to talk about the total lease. If you look on the top right, there's a total lease number for the 5-year and for the 10-year. One of the things that was not included in the staff report that I have included here is a build-out for the Sears building at $30,000. Okay. If we talk about the pros and cons, the pros, most rapid solution to return the sheriff's unity of command. It relieves the clerk's office the inconvenience of the sheriff's presence. Cons, substantial outlay for a 5 or 10-year lease, leaving the county with no asset at lease end. Now, I've included the terms of both the leases, and we can go through them if you have questions. They're more detailed in the staff report. It's just base rent every month, and then there's, and then there's some community association management fees and things like that. And then they increase at certain percentages. And thirdly, even with the Sears building and lease space, the sheriff will have less than adequate operational area. So between the 2 buildings, they still won't have the space that they had before. And lastly, we have option 4. Build a new district office on the site of the Palm Coast Library, larger than the existing plan for a substation. The funding would be approximately $12 to $15 million. We use that number for $300 a square foot for approximately 40,000 square feet. The source is relatively short-term borrowing. We gave some population information numbers for Palm Coast and Flagler County, and we had a number up there for growth rate. So we are growing, we'll continue to grow, and that's going to be part of that whole equation. Pros for this, gives the sheriff a fully adequate facility for at least the next 20 years. It puts the operations at the epicenter of the area that generates 80% of the calls. I have a slide after this one that shows the call numbers that I gotten from the sheriff's office and shows you how that relates to some of the other zones in the county. It increases the law enforcement efficiency and effectiveness. It eliminates the need for several things. One is a substation, so the bank building can be surplused. It also eliminates for the county to find land that there was $650,000 appropriated for storage area in the airport. Most of that funding is going to building the new facilities over on Justice Lane. So that eliminates that need. And then the last one is paid security at the library. The cons requires a substantially larger investment. Okay, so if we go to the next slide, I'll show you this is the slide I received from the sheriff's office, and it talks about those calls. So if you notice on the right, there's a tabulation, and it talks about the zones and where they are. All of the orange are in the city of Palm Coast, and the rest is in the county. You'll notice the calls, they're listed for 2017, 2018. The orange, the bigger numbers in orange, you'll see one of those zones, 10,000 calls in Palm Coast. Almost 9,000 calls, 215, which is Business West, and they talk about 226, which is Cypress Knolls. So you're getting the majority of the calls, okay? Let's talk build-out times, if you want to talk about option 4, okay? I tried to put per option, so if you see on the left side of that box, there's options 2, 3, and 4. If they're in the courthouse, we have to do construction. It'll be about a month. We don't have any design and engineering permitting. If you do option 3 with the lease option, we're talking about commercial construction for Commerce Park at about 6 months, Sears about 1 month. We've got approximately 3 months, and that's just estimating, going through the processes, because if we build in the city of Palm Coast, we have to go through their zoning and planning and permitting, okay? So on the right, we give totals 9 to 12 months for Commerce Park and about 4 to 6 months total build-out times. And option 4 for the new district office, try to be conservative here and say building 10 to 12 months, design, engineering, and permitting, and also I've got some asterisks, so that 12 months also includes we're going to need to do comparative bid options. So that's going to take a month, 2 months, depending on that process. So we're estimating, I tried to be conservative and say 24 months. Can we get that down? Sure. Once again, once we get into it, they do an analysis on it, but see how much of a building they do need, and then we can adjust those times accordingly. I think, let's see. That's my last page. Okay, and the last page, or the last slide we have, is space comparisons. So I tried to include this to give you a broad idea of space, where all the options are, and if we add, where that goes, okay? So in the options are listed 1 through 4 at the top. The first option, they're about 6,400 square feet right now. They're on several floors. Even adding all of those, the Justice Lane, new facilities, and the jail admin space over there, we're still at about 12,400. If you go to the option 2, where they expand their presence, consolidate to 1 floor.
Michael, excuse me, the 35,000 square feet, that's the existing.
That's the
building.
existing.
Is that under air? Or is that everything under the roof? Yeah.
That's everything under the roof. And that's actually another little number in there, but 35,000. So when I tried to include that so you can understand, when I met with Commander Weber and we talked about space planning, they were still short, and we're going to say 40,000 square feet. Once again, space planning, we'll kind of adjust that number. As you go over the options, you can see if they're requiring 40,000 now or in the future, we're still short that. So and the option 3, for Commerce Park and the Sears building, you've got 32,000 square feet. Once again, you're still short of the 35 that they had at 901 East Moody Boulevard. That's it. Questions?
Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Hanson?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, it's also my understanding that not only would we, in this new district office, if we did the new district office, we would also include the tax assessor in that building, and that would save us around $300,000 a year in rent.
That is correct.
I mean, that's
the county administrator to add to that.
That is kind of a late-breaking development. That would be a separate 5,000 square foot building that would be on the property. We believe that we can fit it on at this time. The reason it's not in the presentation is we want to make sure it would fit. If that were to take place, that would also make the Sears building redundant. The monies from the bank and the Sears building sale would essentially pay for that new purpose-designed facility. And there are some other things that happen if we go in that direction. Because the sheriff will be located on that piece of property, you would eliminate the need for the security guard service at the tax collector's office as well as the security at the library. That would amount to right at $100,000 a year. You would also eliminate the need for the rents that they are paying in other facilities, which would be approximately another $200,000, and that gives you a total annual savings of about $300,000. And in addition to that, when you put the buildings back on the tax rolls, is presently about $1 million worth of taxable value, which would mean probably $8,500 a year to the county, but it would also mean that would be back on the rolls for the school board and other taxing authorities. So there are a number of different advantages to that location and being able to consolidate things there.
Other questions, Mr. Hanson?
No, I just wanted to get that out on the table because I think that's another advantage to option 4.
Okay. Other Commissioner Sullivan, and I'll go to you, Commissioner Mullins.
I've got a number of questions, but just to start with, the first question is, the subject of this is request for board select the future location of the Sheriff's Operations Center. So when you look at these other options, to me, they are not permanent solutions. And I thought kind of what the implication of our request here is to come up with a permanent solution for the future, and then we'll work around the interim solutions in the meantime. Because if we happen to pick 4, it's still 2 years before the sheriff gets to move. So to a degree, I think we have a false question here. I think you really only have one permanent solution listed here, other than just stay where we are till we find out if we're going to go back in the old building. And then the name, it says on the request, future location of the Sheriff's Operations Center. And I understand, but the option 4, we're saying it's a district office. Now, my concern is that just a wording problem, or is it a true problem?
It's a ministerial error. That it was formerly an operations center, and that sort of carried on into it. But the sheriff operates in districts, and the district that he is most concentrated in right now is the Palm Coast District. In the future, when we build a library down here, we would, in all probability, to save money, would include with that a District 3 district office, not operations.
But we intend to have the sheriff's his personal office would be in the option 4 building.
He would have an office in the option 4 building, but he would maintain an office. His actual legal office would still be in District 3.
I was just trying to get to that point.
Yeah.
Just so we understand that. So there's still another tail even on option 4, which would be some kind of district office here in Bunnell eventually.
Yes, that would be the plan. I mean, he's ultimately going to need that. His smallest district is actually the Beaches District, and he'll probably end up with a substation there at some point in the future, but that would probably be the last evolution.
Okay, I've got some other points, but that's on the...
Well, you have the floor, so...
Well, nobody's made any proposals yet, officially, so I'll just wait for that.
Okay. Commissioner Mullins.
I understand we need to do something for the sheriff and the employees. I mean, this has gone on way too long. It took just the lackadaisical attitude of what's gone on in the past year, and it is time. It is time we do something. I do have some, District 4, where it is right now, actually, Mr. Cameron is in 4.
There are two different districts systems that we're talking about.
I got you. I got you. I understand. I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's not commission and school board districts. It's the sheriff's operation districts.
Gotcha. And there you go, confusing me again with more political stuff I got to learn. But anyway, what I was saying is Bunnell is the county seat, and it's very important to me that we remember that we represent that community. We stay very strong, and we make sure that we keep a strong police force over here. Now, with that being said, I can see every reason in the world to do something over in Palm Coast and to have different areas. And certainly as we grow, we're going to need more police protection. The truth of the matter is we're at this because of some very, very bad decision making from prior people. I still want to hold these people accountable. I still think that there are millions of dollars that have been out there wasted of taxpayers' money, and the backdoor deals that are reaping on here needs to be addressed. Our sheriff and the staff have been subject to a lot of stuff, and they risk their lives unnecessarily, and it's time that comes to an end and we put them in a home. I know that our courthouse is not a permanent option, and Mr. Bexley, I appreciate everything you've done to accommodate them to this point over there. But, if we had a major thing occur, our sheriff's doing a great job. If we had a major thing occur, I think we would see it a little bit, possibly. He's done a great job at it. But it's time to get you guys in a good home, in a place where y'all have a voice in doing this. And unfortunately, there's not going to be, I've looked at it, and there's not going to be an easy solution to this. This was a bad decision several years ago. And it's time for it to come to an end and wrap it up.
Anything, Commissioner Erickson?
I don't have a comment at the moment.
Wondering if we could hear from you, Sheriff Staley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Commissioner Sullivan, to answer your question on litigation, it's all still pending and probably more coming. Commissioners, first I'd like to thank you for placing this on the agenda for a discussion and hopefully a solution for our building issue. Since you already know the issues that we've encountered in the last 17 months with the building, in the operational issues since we vacated the building, believe it or not, 11 months ago. I will not rehash what everyone already knows. None of us created this situation. No one here voted to remodel the old hospital for the Sheriff's Operations Center, and I was not the sheriff, but it's now our responsibility to find a solution. I am hopeful that tonight we will make great progress toward a long-term and permanent solution that will last 30 years or more for this community and the Sheriff's Office. Many of you have asked me individually about the proposed options. In my opinion, there's only one long-term permanent solution, and that is option 4. But let me talk about the other options so you can get my perspective on the record. And I'd also like to thank Mike and for everything he's done putting this together and the presentation along with the county administrator. So option 1 is remain as we are in a currently dysfunctional decentralized operation until a resolution is reached on the abandoned building. First, this could take many years, and we cannot continue to operate in the current cramped and inappropriate working conditions that my employees are suffering under. Secondly, frankly, unless you can give me a letter certifying this building is safe for sheriff's employees, and you identify me or the office of the sheriff and provide a hold harmless agreement, I cannot in good conscience ever go back into the abandoned building. So I personally don't think that you can guarantee this building is safe. So in my opinion, option 1 should be off the table. Option 2, that's a better interim solution. but it's not a long-term resolution. The courthouse space was not designed for sheriff's operations, and as growth occurs, eventually the court system and the clerk's office will need more space. This option of being considered as a permanent or long-term solution is really only kicking the can down the road. We've done that for 17 months already. Option 2 might be a better temporary solution and is the most cost-effective temporary solution for the taxpayers while a new building is being built. Option 3 is a hybrid combination of using county-owned space and renting space. I don't believe that that's a good solution for the taxpayer, as there's no ROI on the rental space. And again, it's mostly kicking the can down the road because, as Mike mentioned, it's still inadequate space and we're still split. So that brings us to option 4. Frankly, option 4 is not anyone, not anything or anyone that we were hoping to have to deal with, but we're here. I believe the county administrator has brought you a good plan, one that I understand can be done without a tax increase. The question then becomes location, and many of you have asked me my thoughts on the various locations, so let me just discuss them quickly. County-owned property currently proposed for the Southern Library. This location is logical for a sheriff's operation if, and that's the key word, if, you want to group the sheriff's operation services near services that we use on a daily basis or in the government service area. It's adjacent to the EOC, it's adjacent to the 911 center, which we operate, a fleet, fuel pumps in the courthouse. For overall sheriff's operations, that's a logical location. So just kind of keep that in mind until I get to the end. Town center has been discussed. That's a logical location if you want to help spur development in town center. The Palm Coast Library option. This is a logical location if you want to put the main sheriff's district office sized by the population and service close to the majority of the population that currently needs our services and near where the predicted population boom is expected to occur, and which is almost doubling, I believe, in 25 years, if I remember correctly. So therefore, to kind of summarize those locations that I've heard discussed or that you've asked me about, I think all 3 locations are workable, and I will support whichever one you choose. I just ask you to consider the following 5 things as you make the choice. Please make a decision tonight so that we can finally start moving forward. We need a professional space study conducted so that a new building is designed for long-term, 30 years or more, using a company that has experience in building public safety and completing public safety studies and designs. That was not done previously. A shell of a building was purchased, and then a sheriff's office was crammed in there, and there's currently 0 growth, about 400 square feet for growth in that current building. That's not the way to do it. If you do choose to build a new building, hire an architectural firm that specializes in the design of public safety buildings, specifically police or sheriff's offices, and hire an outside project manager during the construction. Please keep in mind that the sheriff's office does need a Bunnell district office that will have to be resolved at some point. And finally, we need a better interim solution while a replacement building is being designed and built. So those are my thoughts on it. I would, after the analysis that I completed, that I just stated, probably for the community and the population that interacts with us, the best location then is the library. For the sheriff's overall operational people that we interact with, by the EOC is better. But I think at the end of the day, this is about serving the public, in serving the citizens. And a little inconvenience to us, maybe having to drive a little further for fuel from an operations center or for fleet, those kind of things, then I would probably go towards the library. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Questions for the sheriff, gentlemen?
Sheriff, the Emergency Operations Center, certainly there's land over here and there's opportunity over here. It's a bigger project. Could this be something where a precinct office, as this community grows, I've seen it in many cities and many counties where they have multiple offices. Is this something that could be put over there for right now, and then we work on a bigger, more organized sheriff emergency operations center combination over here as the community grows and as the county moves forward?
So the projections that I've seen from the University of Florida, the primary population growth is in the city of Palm Coast for Flagler County. It's a little unusual, a little unique, because usually what happens is the county seat is the bigger city, and as communities grow, that didn't occur in Flagler County, so that's a little different. So if you're looking at the service to the people that are projected to use the services the most, and that's in the city of Palm Coast. Bunnell's going to grow, but the projections are not showing it as fast as the city of Palm Coast. You clearly need a district office in Bunnell. We should not abandon Bunnell. So I think I think the way to do this is size it by the service population that you're going to deal with. I think what you could see in the future is a secondary district office in Palm Coast at the south end. You have a lot of growth from the core of Palm Coast and then northwest over to US 1. And of course, we know that Palm Coast is trying to develop Town Center to be the new city core. So you will see growth there.
Commissioner, we can't ignore the fact that Palm Coast actually pays the sheriff $3.5 million to be their police department. And that has to be factored into decisions you make about where to locate facilities, because not only are 80% of his calls occurring there, 80% of the population lives there, and they are paying for enhanced services. And if we didn't factor them in, I'm sure that they would be concerned about that.
And I would also like to add that we do have a District 1 office that's on Malacompra. Predominantly, it is where our Marine and Dive Unit is staged at, but for certainly a fairly long foreseeable future, that is adequate for the growth that we're seeing in the beaches hammock side.
Commissioner Sullivan? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I had a couple of things. That last comment, is also, Bunnell does have their own police department, and Flagler Beach, City of Flagler Beach, does have their own police department. So in no way will we be abandoning Bunnell, since they already have their own police department now with future growth in your District 4 area and things like that. But just to make that point. The next is that, and this is, I'm going over stuff, but I've been involved with this, although I wasn't elected, for a long time. And I don't want to make a quick decision here without going over a number of points. Again, the county, the Board of County Commissioners owns the building. We're stuck with the old building, and we're going to lose $6 million paying that building off. Hopefully sometime we can do something with it, who knows what. So that's going to happen no matter what. We need a new location. The option presented here is only coming to light for, I'm saying this for public record, we've been trying to come up with a solution on this for quite a while. It's only in the last, since our new county administrator came on board, that we've come up with a possible way of financing the this effort in the $12 to $15 million category with borrowing. The point I try to make on that is that there's no free lunches. There's not like this magical tree with the goose that lays the golden eggs, and all of a sudden we've got an additional $12 or $15 million. This will impact the overall county budget. There's no doubt about that public safety is right up there on top, but so is things like education, plans that we have already approved, so on and so forth. And no matter what anybody says, including our brilliant new county administrator, it's going to hurt the rest of the budget for the next few years. And the obvious one is the South Library, where we had already purchased the property, started design. That's going to be pushed back. I don't care what anybody says, that's going to be pushed back if it ever actually gets built. So I want to make the point now that if we go down this route today, we are going to have significant impact, not only for the Sheriff's Department, which is top priority, no doubt, and the people who work there, but it will have impact on the rest of the Board of County Commissioners and the citizens of the county. So, and then the other thing is, we're going to now, if we agree to something like this today, we have to come up with an interim solution. And as far as I know, we don't have a 2-year solution right now that's acceptable, that's truly acceptable. So I just want to make those points, and then I'll shut up.
Chairman, can I, to go along with what Commissioner Sullivan said, this decision was made years ago when they decided to put it in that building. That's when the impact to this county occurred. The devastating impact to this county occurred. So to hold our current sheriff employees, and ourselves with this, we have got to focus on the solution. It's going to cost us. These decisions don't go unpunished and uncostly. But this was made, to be very clear, this was made way before our watch.
Commissioners?
The reason I didn't have any earlier questions, I was waiting for the sheriff to make a comment himself. I was with a corporation, and they moved me around a lot of times, and they are always looking for new field offices while they had one corporate office. And I would always get these recommendations and from corporate, and they would say, well, we found some real good space downtown. And then when I'd find out what it is, it meant all the people would have to park at about $15 a day. They didn't have any bus transportation. They didn't have this. They didn't have that. The point I'm trying to make is that the people back at the corporate didn't know what the particular individual needs are of the individual department. I don't know how much space we've got across the street at the old jail over here. I don't know if that's enough space to build something on. Did you have a comment?
Yes, Commissioner, I would do a comment. I would oppose that location because it's west of the tracks.
Oh, okay.
And when the operations center was moved east of the tracks, the foot traffic and interaction with the public skyrocketed. And so we need to be much more.
Okay, I'm just saying. I think I would line up behind you in what you wanted individually for not only the next 5 years, but 10 years and looking 30 years out. We think growth is coming in the next couple of years. Most of us won't be around when this place is 250, 350,000 people. It's just going to be a big group of people between Jacksonville and Orlando. And we've got to think long term, and we got to think expandable.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I can address that. So, the way I have looked at this, working with your county administrator, is that I'm the sitting sheriff, and the decisions that we make collectively will affect the sheriff's office and the county for the next 20, 30, 40 years. And so I take that very seriously, and I think it's a very important decision. What I would envision, if you're looking at the population, and I believe there's 19 acres there. I don't know how much of that is buildable. The staff might be able to tell you that. That 19 acres, we're on 7.5 right now at the abandoned building, from what I understand, or 7 acres, somewhere in there. So that's plenty of room, from my perspective, for parking and egress and in and out. At that intersection. Now, that intersection over years is going to become very bottlenecked. I'm sure of that. That's why I said at some point in the future, and it may be 15 years, or maybe if the community is really growing towards the south end town center, there might need to be a district office in the town center area, depending on the growth there, and that would alleviate some of it there. My conversations with your county administrator have been that space study needs to be done for people that's their expertise. I can tell you what I need today, and I can probably project that a little bit, but we need to build a shell anyways that would last 20, 30 or more years. It might be that you only finish the interior 3/4 so that you have expansion. And I'm just saying that as a possibility.
Well, and the cost to build it this year isn't what it's going to be 10 years from now either.
Correct. So there are ways to keep the cost down, but build the shell. And I can tell you that I know of many, many agencies and governments that have done that. Winter Park Police Department did it. Orange County Sheriff's Office has done it. Kissimmee. That's just a smart way of building.
You've seen some larger forces, how they've had to adapt to what they've had in greater land acreage and stuff like that, and that's why I think you and Jerry can have my blessing to push along in looking at some of these different options.
So I would like to just clarify a couple things that were said, though. I think a day or two ago, I heard about the tax collector, district office or whatever they want to call it. I certainly don't have a problem with the tax collector being on that campus, but should not be part of the sheriff's office buildings, because there's too many operations going on there, and if it's not done correctly, it could cause us to lose our law enforcement accreditation. So that would be something. So standalone building, if there's enough space, then fine, but don't cram so much in there that we don't have the expansion and do the things that we need. And while the sheriff may have an office or would have an office in Bunnell, I think if the majority of the employees are serving one area, that's where you'll probably find the sheriff most of the time.
Commissioner Sullivan.
I'm sorry, a couple more things I wanted to clear. The bank building on Old Kings that we're right now, that was designed to be basically the precinct office for Palm Coast, so we could get out of where we currently lease. Is that still the plan?
I don't think so, but I would defer to the county administrator on that.
Okay, he can answer that later or when he wants, but I would like to get an answer to that, or at least where we're thinking about it.
That depends on what you do tonight.
Okay. And the other one I have is that of all the groups that are going to get hurt, I say, that's my words, hurt by this, is the library. And there's one thing that I'd like to have some assurance that at the minimum, we restore the restrooms at our main library and without delay, that we continue to do that, because I think it actually affects the homeless problem on top of everything else. And the restrooms there have been destroyed. They're almost unusable. People are afraid to go in there. So we're not going to build the South Library anytime soon. So could we please get some assurance that the restrooms at the library will be improved?
That is already underway, Commissioner.
Okay. That's it.
Commissioner Hanson.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt option 4 and option 2.
Could I ask you to hold that motion
Sure.
and we'll open up the public comment first?
Okay.
I appreciate that. Anything else, Sheriff?
No, sir, thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Cameron, on presentation-wise?
Just to say, Mr. Chairman, that in facing really serious problems, which this certainly qualifies as, I don't think that I have ever seen a solution present itself that has more advantages than the option 4 in terms of saving the county money, consolidating services, putting property back on a tax roll, eliminating the need for security guards. And I do want to say that it has never been the plan to attach the tax collector's office to the sheriff's. It would be a considerable distance from the sheriff's operation, and that would only happen if during this design phase we determined that we could fit it in.
Okay, thank you.
Sheriff, may I ask you one question real quick? And I think I know the answer, but I don't want to assume it. You feel like since the transitions we've made in the county, that the current county administrator and you have worked much better on this project, finding a solution, and you're good with what we're looking at?
We have had a great relationship thus far, and I appreciate his efforts in moving this forward quickly, because it's been a long time coming.
Then I'm happy.
One other thing before we open up for public comment, I'm wondering, Mr. Clerk, if you'd like to weigh in on this or have anything you'd like to add? Appreciate that. And I apologize. I saw you back there, and it was on my mind and kind of went sideways. So appreciate you coming forward.
And thank you for recognizing me, Tom Bexley, Clerk and Comptroller. I think everybody's heard me speak pretty loudly about the importance of public safety. I think, and it's tough for a constitutional officer to say this, that the most important constitutional officer is not yourself. But I'll say that, and I have a lot of respect for the guys and the women in green that I've had the great opportunity to live with for the last 11 months. But I got to ask a question to the commission and to the sheriff. Do you not know or do you not care? And what I'm asking about is the impact to my operation. You've got a proposal right now, number 2, that sounds like it may be a part of the motion to fix this problem in its entirety. There's a big problem there. And what I've heard so far about this proposal to move the sheriff into a single floor, single location in the courthouse, while it sounds great, it's got some repercussions to your clerk and comptroller. As it sits right now, the clerk and comptroller has basically 3 functions for the county. That is money, courts, and records. And I look at those 3 parts of my office right now, and I have men and women in green in each part of them. Okay. When this all started, I was commiserate to do this for 90 days, as we all discussed in my conference room those 11 months ago. And as I've heard different people say, this has blossomed from 3 months to 11 months, with the talk on the table that we're going to move to another 24 months. And I had a meeting with our county administrator the other day, and he assures me this can be done in 24 months. And I said, I've got my doubts on that, and I think that most people in the real world would. So back to my point, do you not know or do you not care? Of those 3 functions I just said, by moving your clerk and comptroller's operations out of the first floor, you're effectively taking me away from the county's official record. And that's not just the records of the land, that's the records that we maintain for you, commissioners. Now, let's flip that the other way. Let's say we want to take the sheriff's operations, move him up on the 2nd floor, and take all those people in the courts division and move them down to the 1st floor. I got another problem. I've got an evidence vault up there that was built specifically to house the evidence of the courts It's sealed, it's self-contained. We store a lot of nasty stuff there. The sheriff knows that. He stores his share of that as well. So that's my point. By just willy-nilly taking 15 employees and moving them out of the first floor to the second floor, I am going to burden those people who access those official records on your behalf and on behalf of the 110,000 people who these folks out here represent. And they are going to have to walk downstairs, access the records. And how are they going to get to those records? By walking through the sheriff's secure operation. This is wrought with problems and with failure. And not only are you going to not ultimately fix the problem, you're going to put a Band-Aid on the sheriff's operation. Like he said, this is not an ideal long-term solution. You're going to do harm to my office and to the constituents that I represent.
So if I may,
yes,
that's an option for us to choose or not choose. So
Right.
if we choose not to choose that option, and let's say we did go in the direction of this option 4, we still have a 24-month, at best, problem or issue to deal with. So the question becomes, can we work together to try to get through the next 24 months given the current situation that we have?
I have, I think in good faith, voluntarily worked with the sheriff, the
No
commission.
one disagrees.
And administration, no
Right.
question about that.
Right.
I have always said that if we can get a firm date, then I would make some sort of a commitment long term. I think I have made a very significant sacrifice in my operation. Anything further would put me in the dire straits that your sheriff's in right now. Let's not debilitate one to fix another. Let's think of something else, folks.
Okay.
Chairman.
Well, go ahead, Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah,
We'll go
I
that way.
included that option 2 in my motion, which I will change based on what you're going to tell me next, because I thought there would be some way to ease your situation if we picked option 2. So if you're telling me there is no way to readjust folks in your building to make it a better operation for both you and the sheriff, then I will not put that in the motion. I was doing that because I thought it would give you an opportunity to make it better. But if you can't, we won't do it. So
I think you just answered your own
Okay.
question there, sir.
All right. All right. Thank you, Tom.
Yes, sir.
I was going to say that we need one option. We need to quit saying multiple things or throwing out there, and dang, I sure don't want to hear the word workshop with this. We need solutions. We need option 4, which seems to be what most people feel. So, if we're ready to make that option.
Well, I'd want to open it up to public comment.
That's
first
right.
Before we go
That's
to a
right.
motion.
But Mr. Bexley, I do want to say thank you for what you've done and been there with I've followed you and the sheriff way before I was ever elected with this situation, and y'all have worked together phenomenally well. I did my best to remove the problem. I think we did, and I think we're now looking at the solution. But thank you. We couldn't have been there without your support.
Thanks, Commissioner. And one more thing.
Yes, sir.
I will voluntarily continue the current situation that we have now. We're a little uncomfortable, but like I said, I understand the idea of going out and obtaining independent space elsewhere. While it's feasible, the last thing we want to do is burden the taxpayers with any more dollars, and I think it would certainly do that. So,
Thank you, Mr. Bexley. Appreciate it. All right. With that, I'm going to open it up to public comment. Please limit your comments and questions to the item we're discussing.
Roberta Paletta, Halifax Plantation. I love Google. While you all were discussing how to incorporate your motions, I did go to a website that said that as of December 2013, Standard & Poor upgraded the county's credit rating from A+ to AA-, which is a step up, even though that minus is there. And the highest rating is AAA. Money's cheap right now. I mean, you couldn't pick a better time to have to remedy a situation like this in terms of interest rates. And if the county, I don't know what the county's current bond rating is, but if it's as strong as at least a AA, pension funds, it's investment grade for them, and they will jump on it, especially if you have a strong track record. So that would be something to take into consideration.
Thank you. George?
Good evening again, George Mayo. At a previous city council meeting, Palm Coast City Council meeting, I had asked before we had any of these solutions, was there possibly any land or facilities or buildings that Palm Coast could lease or sell to the county or to the sheriff to be usable for an operations center? And they said while they would like to do that, it was impossible because the operations center had to remain by state law at the county seat. So is it semantics? I know it's county property at the library, but it's in Palm Coast. So I don't know if there's misinformation or we're playing semantics. The sheriff seemed to say like his first option would be at the EOC and to move the library. I think, yes, the library is important, but the sheriff's office is more important. You're going to have to demolish the current building. We know that. Nobody's going to want to go in there. The sheriff said he won't go in there. Why not use that after it's demolished for the new library and put the sheriff over to the EOC? That is also a center for if you have hurricanes, everything could be centered there. The other thing would be town center is more, Palm Coast is growing to the south of 100, so you would be kind of central to where the city is. At the library, it's, as you all probably know, that intersection is a mess many times with traffic and everything, and I think putting the central sheriff's office would just exacerbate that problem. So with the sheriff's suggestion, my personal recommendation would be to put it at the EOC and consolidate everything over there. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Next.
Hi, I'm in agreement with that, gentleman. All I keep hearing about is Palm Coast, Palm Coast, Palm Coast, and I just feel like you're going to be abandoning Bunnell residents. I'm so tired of hearing about Palm Coast. This is the county seat.
Please identify yourself for the clerk. I'm sorry.
Oh, my name is Kimberly Barnhart-Smith.
Thank you.
I would like to know how this benefits Bunnell at all. I do not believe that this would benefit Bunnell. I believe it would be taking away from Bunnell. And Bunnell citizens are constantly treated as second-class citizens of this county, and this is the county seat. And before the building was sick, I don't believe they had any intentions of going to Palm Coast, and they had the growth estimated then as well, and they had no plans on leaving, so I think they should stay. I think the EOC option is a better choice. All of the government services building around it. Commissioner Sullivan said that Bunnell had its own department. That's a joke. If anything, Palm Coast should have their own department. And give Palm Coast District Office. They should have their own police department. The EOC is the best option. I just feel that it would be, I'm a lifelong citizen here, and it would just totally be abandoning the citizens. It's always about Palm Coast, and Bunnell people are important too.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. Commissioner. Welcome.
First time.
Not really. My name is Jan Rieger. I need to make it very clear that I am here as a Bunnell citizen and not as any other hat that I wear. It certainly isn't the first time that I've spoken up as a citizen, and that's the position that I'm taking here. The first thing I want to say is I do appreciate Sheriff Staley making his comment that we clearly need district offices in Bunnell and understands and appreciates a number of issues about it remaining there. There's something for the sake of public information and understanding. I think it would be wise to make clear the word district has been bandied around any number of times. You gentlemen each represent a district. Sheriff Staley has districts that he defines by his how he controls his operation and organization. And I think the two words, the way the word district being banding around in two manners makes it confusing, and I think it would be nice to clarify that. On a logical level, logical basis, I can certainly see and understand option 4. For an office and perhaps a substantial office. There's been a couple comments made about the library site being far into the future. I think that's the concept, was looking at that as the Bunnell office. I just think it would be nice in some manner in looking all this to try to put it together as a plan that works all the way around. In other words, would the Bunnell, perhaps main office, be in 5 years? Would the quote, quote, Palm Coast district office be in 2? I just think it would be interesting to take a good look at some timing, some clarification for all the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rieger. Next speaker, please.
Yes, my name is Jim Olsemer. As most of you know, I chair the Library Board of Trustees, which I have for, I think, over 10 years now. And we all know that public safety is the most important thing that government does, but it's not the only thing. And so there are ideas bandied about using, connecting Sheriff's Operations Center to the EOC. I'm not sure everybody, what piece of land that is. There is land very close to the EOC, which is dedicated for the building of a future library. And sheriff carries a gun, but over my dead body are they going to take that land? I mean, that's got to be, well, excuse my...
The witnesses.
Yeah, but, yes, Sheriff Staley's so correct. He inherited this problem. It is sucking the air out of the room. It's sucking the finances out of this county. And we've got to remedy the situation. But, the library, the current library was built in the year 2000 when the population was 49,000 people. It's going to be 110,000 soon. By the time a library gets built, it'll probably be 120, 125,000. And we can't keep putting this off. Commissioner Sullivan did sort of acknowledge what people are observing, that a lot of things are going to have to be pushed back in line because of the need to correct this problem. But don't touch the library. I know the county clerk is concerned about the people being inconvenienced by some of the things that are happening, having to share the facility, with the sheriff. But, we got 53,000 library cardholders, active cardholders, and it's the most heavily used service in the county. And I'm just going to ask you to leave your hands off of it. Let's go ahead with the plans. Libraries are a great investment in our people. And the introduction of children to literacy, lifelong learning for adults, the ability to have access to computers that people can't necessarily afford in their own homes. There are lots of other services. And maybe a little extra library services might make the need for jails somewhat less. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olsemer.
Evening, gentlemen. There's one benefit. Dennis McDonald. Sorry.
Thank you, sir.
There's one benefit that hasn't been mentioned about number 4, and that is the fact that every year since Palm Coast has been a city, there's always a discussion at budget time about having their own police department. And I know that you all remember that one time it got to be a pretty serious situation where they were really thinking about doing it. This is certainly a number of years back. But that can come back again. And quite honestly, the taxpayers of Flagler County and the great majority that live in Palm Coast don't need that, because you have a redundancy that's unnecessary. So that's one of the things to consider here, and that's what you get with number 4. And you're covering the great majority of people that in Palm Coast. And I would like to see that in 20 years from now or more, we're not having that discussion about the fact that we have to have a separate Palm Coast Police Department, which again costs the great majority of taxpayers in this county, a lot more money. So, and to the point about Bunnell, I understand their situation. The sheriff's, I'm sure, going to maintain some type of presence here, and still does with a lot of his staff and the different operations that he has. But the other thing is that they have their own police department, just like Flagler Beach has theirs, and they all do a very good job. So we need to, consider that also. But if we could be in a situation where we're thinking down the road where we're not having that discussion about Palm Coast going to get their own police department 20, 30 years from now, I think that would be a good one to avoid. So, and one other thing I would like to ask you, when I sat and I saw number 2 back there, please don't consider it. Mr. Bexley, you pushed Tom to the limit. and so I would ask you to please give no consideration to number 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Any other speakers? Okay, seeing none, I'll close the public comment on this item and take it back to commissioners for any other comments or questions or a motion. Entertain a motion.
Mr.
Chairman,
Chair.
I move that we adopt our option 4.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Chair, I had a comment.
Hold on. We have a motion on the floor. I'm
Second.
asking for a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I'm not trying to be rude, but that's
No,
the
I understand.
process.
I was
so-
speaking first, but go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. No, my comment on this is that we, I totally see the concerns of the library and the future of it, and I don't know that position is well enough thought or planned out. We certainly need to do something. We do have the growth coming in Palm Coast. I think there's, in District 4, I'm going to work hard to see industry come. That was one of the primary things. So it's going to see its population growth. But I think with the way the mayor and I have been speaking lately, that she certainly is talking about expediting county or city permits and approvals. I think Mr. Cameron, we probably ought to reach out to her and talk about, in the county, the city manager, and talk about expediting this so we can get it moving and get the clerk of courts back open. And I think also they need to take the concerns of the citizens. We need to do a traffic study, which I know the city is very big on doing that because they want to see their growth. So this is a great time in our community to show where we're working with them and working together. But I think with everything considered, I don't feel like we're abandoning Bunnell. I think Bunnell definitely needs to have a strong presence with the sheriff, and it is our county seat. But at the same time, we got to get this solved.
Thank you. Those discussions will happen tomorrow.
Commissioner Sullivan, you had something else?
Yeah, just if we approve option 4, and I've seconded it, I do want to point out that we still have a 2-year interim solution to work out, which I think is a separate issue that can be worked out separately for the vote we would take for option 4.
Yes, sir. The problem with working out something interim is until I knew what the permanent solution was, it was very difficult to address the interim solution. We've talked about potentials, but we should be coming back imminently with a solution for the short term.
Commissioners? No? I would just like to weigh in. I've been waiting to the end just to be respectful. A few things. Up until this point, I have not been able to de-link the two decisions, if you will, of what to do with the current facility and how to move forward. But this provides, by bifurcating the decision process, Mr. Cameron, this helps me to be able to get there. And, Commissioner Sullivan, you said months ago that you weren't willing to put another penny into that existing facility, and I'm pretty much there today by being able to move forward with this decision. I don't see ever a time where I can see the sheriff reoccupying that building with his staff. And it's unfortunate and it's sickening, but I think we're at that point where we have to realize that and plan for the future and get it done. I would like to clarify the motion that we're not choosing any budget item at this point. We're not choosing the size of a location. We're just directing staff that this is the best long-term solution at this time, and asking Mr. Cameron, by taking this motion, asking Mr. Cameron to get this done in cooperation with the sheriff and also the clerk, and as well as working on the process that we need to go through to accommodate the construction time.
I agree completely. That's the sense of my motion, is to get this thing kicked. Get it moving.
I would need authority to expend monies for design and surveying and permitting and those kinds of things in order to not delay this further in coming back for every one of those.
Okay. I also I take the clerk at his word that by having a path forward that we're all going to work together to try to get this done. I know him to be a person of his word, and so I feel good that that's going to happen. And I also want to reiterate that we are a growing county, and the sheriff's right. The long-term projections for our population from the University of Florida for 2035, which is 15 years from now, basically is a population on the medium estimate side of 150,000. So having a substantial district office in Palm Coast is really a no-brainer given the growth that is going to come in Palm Coast and the services that are demanded there now. So as this being a district office, but that accommodates the majority of the staff as things develop, I think is a good solution for the long term. So I would support that. I would also hope, Mr. Cameron, that as you go through these negotiations, that I think the sheriff's suggestions of two things. One, a lot of things, but two in particular, of engaging a professional firm to design the space that has background in public facilities and in particular law enforcement. If we need to think seriously about that. And I know in the past that we've always been our own project manager and general contractor, but I just I'll leave that to the experts. That's not me, but I really think we should think about not doing that in the future.
Well, I thoroughly agree with you. I think we've had a lot of experience with buying old stuff and trying to fix it that wasn't purpose-built. And I do need the latitude to make sure that the record reflects in this that I have the authorities to spend money for designs and surveying and permitting in order to move forward. That includes maybe transferring money to the sheriff's budget if he's got a better opportunity on the design for specialty built. But I need those authorities moving forward.
You want to amend your motion that way, Commissioner?
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I amend the motion to include the ability of the county manager to move money to the sheriff if needed to select a design individual, and that he has money to do the surveying and building design.
Not to exceed $1 million, just so that we have a number in there.
And how much? What's the number?
Not to exceed $1 million.
Not to exceed $1 million.
I don't expect it to go that high, but we do need to furnish the clerk a number.
Okay, we have a revision of the motion. Does the second?
I modify my second accordingly.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I agree with you that based on all the past stuff, I'm not saying our staff's not great, and I'm not saying that they don't do a wonderful job, but let's let the contractors and the be the contractors. Let's let private industry do what they're good at doing and let them build this thing and let them gauge it. Mr. Cameron, I think that's a...
If you would please include permitting in that motion.
To include permitting, again, not to exceed $1 million total.
Okay. One last comment on this. I think we could have done a better job in describing this item on our agenda, that's just feedback for the future. Okay.
Yes, sir. If we get together afterwards, you can give me some specificity on that.
Okay. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the motion as amended and the second, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. No, none opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you to everybody. Okay, item 8B on our agenda is discussion of executive search firm. I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, can I just say thank you to you and the board for finally getting the football down a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Need medical?
Yeah. Rick, now you need to get reelected.
Okay.
Okay. We
have an item on the floor here. Our next agenda item is a discussion of executive search firm. That is something that I requested to be added to the agenda, or to put on the agenda a few weeks ago. And the reason for that is staff asked for some direction as far as retaining a search firm, as we had directed them to do as we went through the process of identifying Mr. Cameron as in our quote-unquote interim position. It's my kickoff for discussion here with the board that we basically slow down the process or discontinue it right now, and I'm doing that for a few reasons. One, I am extremely pleased with Mr. Cameron's performance at this point and his dedication and commitment to our county. And so we know that long term we're going to have to do that, but he's also given indications to me, and I'm sure maybe some of you as well, that his time horizon is not necessarily what we thought it might have been originally, of maybe 6 to 9 months. It may be 2 to 3 years. I'm not quite sure, but and if you want to clarify on that, you can, Mr. Cameron. But I just wanted to kick it off a discussion that maybe we provide direction to staff to slow down or to stop the process for looking for for a search firm to assist us in identifying the permanent or the long-term county administrator at this point. So just kind of open that up.
Mr. Chairman, I would totally agree with you on that. I think that there's a lot of problems here, as we've seen over the last few months, that have been just ignored, neglected, manipulated, that need to be resolved. And to switch someone real soon would be setting up that new person for failure, and it would also be taking away from the progress and the strides that Mr. Cameron is making. I think he's done a phenomenal job. I would like to, see us totally stop this right now to looking for a new one and let him get in here and continue the path of utilizing the staff and allowing them to work to move forward. I'm very proud of what you've done so far, even though you're a South Carolina guy. I'm very proud.
Commissioners, any comments or thoughts?
No, I'd go along with your remarks. I think Mr. Cameron's demonstrated out of the blocks that he not only can do the job, but he can take us to new heights. And he's got some vast knowledge of other options available to that, as he brought forth here tonight to keep us on a straight line towards coming up with this positive vote.
Any other comments?
Yes, I would support that, and glad that we're making some progress.
Anything, Commissioner Hanson? So I don't think we need a motion. Can we just maybe provide consensus? Mr. Adid, just looking for some guidance there that we would just direct staff to discontinue the search process at this point until we direct future, or, I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Chairman, maybe a thought for our attorney that we remove the interim from the title of Mr. Cameron at this point.
Well, I think it was.
Well, as you,
we did that.
I did address that in a memorandum
We did that. Right.
to the board, and
yeah,
his title is county administrator.
Right.
Yeah,
that's by law.
Right. There is no such title as interim county administrator. He is by law. He's the county administrator.
Right. Mr. Chairman, the only reason I bring that up, I know that, is that publicly there's still quite a bit of use of that. So I just like publicly to say that right now as we agree to this.
Okay.
But to answer your question, Mr. Chair, you can do that by consensus. That is, directing staff to suspend the present search and await for further instructions from the board.
Can we get
if that be your wish?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking for, consensus on.
I would agree with that.
Okay. All right. Sounds like we have agreement there. So we can pass that on to Ms. Wu. You'll do that for us, sir?
Yes, sir. I
know she's here, but she works for you.
She came to me on this and whether or not to put it on the agenda, and I told her that I didn't think it was my call to make, so I deferred it to you. And she certainly has that information, and I guess that means I'll be here for 2 more weeks.
You're stuck with me.
Maybe.
Well, as I've told employees in the past, I'll support you up to and including your exit interview.
Yeah. And Mr. Cameron, I'm going to promise you I'll have more energy.
I believe that, in fact, all county managers and city managers are interim.
Well, that's a good point, too, sir. Okay. All right. So we'll, I don't believe we have any public hearings, which is agenda item 9. So we'll go to additional reports and comments. And first up would be you, Mr. Cameron.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. First off, in dealing with these relatively high-profile, thorny issues that y'all have been dealing with, I think it's just important to reiterate that this is a hand that you were dealt. It's a hand that you can't refuse to play, and because it's not a very good hand, there is going to be no perfect solutions. That we're just not going to make everybody happy with every one of these solutions that we can't come up with. But the one option that we don't have is to stand still. We have got to move this forward because, believe it or not, there are more important things than these issues that are going to be facing this county. And we have got to position Flagler County for the growth that is about to happen. And we need to coordinate very closely with our municipalities. We need to have a stronger relationship with them probably than ever in the history of the county, because it has to be a concerted effort to address this if you want Flagler County to be all it can be in the future. If you make wrong decisions, wrong turns, or fail to act when rapid growth happens, there's no time to catch up. There's no time to prepare yourself. I went through that spurt in St. Johns County, and thank goodness that they had a number of developers that were interested in getting the best result overall with the county and made some significant compromises. That came after we had done it wrong and ended up with a real mess, particularly in the 210 corridor up there. We can avoid that by learning from the mistakes that others made, and I hope that we can clear these things off, because they could appear to be inconsequential to what could come next if we don't get it right. So I just want to say that I don't envy the hand that you were dealt. I kind of like problem solving, so it hasn't worn on me as much as it might some other people, but I do have concerns that if we don't move past this kind of stuff that's haunting you from the past, that we won't prepare for the future. I just like to get that on the record. The reports that I have is, number one, I want to make you aware that you're already probably aware of it. It has been bouncing around. The Wick Line building, Flagler Beach would like to revise that agreement that we have with them. I've talked with their city manager and their mayor. Their proposal is pretty benign. It just gives them a feeling that they're more involved with their property, and we hopefully will be bringing that to you within the next several meetings, and I think that working with them to do that is an opportunity to pull the relationship between the county and the municipality closer together. You will have upcoming on Plantation Bay a report. Preliminarily, we should be getting that to you hopefully the second meeting in May. Preliminarily, it looks like that we're going to be able to resolve those issues out there without a rate increase. It looks like that we will be able to do that. And I did meet with the engineer that was suggested by the Plantation Bay group. It's an engineer that had an alternate plan of a $1.8 million solution. We met with him, and his product looks really good. We had our engineering department there, and can find no real fault with the product, but we do need to be clear. Although it's a totally redundant system, that it is for machinery only, piping and blowers and pumps, valves, those kinds of things. The county would still need to build the tanks themselves. We'd need to build the buildings that house it. We'd need to do the plumbing that connects it to the reject system. So we are probably talking about we are talking about a substantially higher figure than $1.8 million.
So we were misled, lied to?
Well, we had part of the information. Let's put it that way.
That's pretty normal.
And we are going to let our design folks take a look at this, and if we can incorporate them into the bid process, I don't think it's a bad solution, but they would have to competitively bid. Their design might be an alternate design, but we're going to answer those questions in the next couple of days and move forward.
How much does this delay the whole project?
We would have some delay in design, and I'll know that better after we reach out to our engineer and consultant. But you can count on a noticeable delay. I won't characterize it as significant at this point, but we do need to move forward with this. We've got a consent order that we need to comply with. We've got a facility that we have some concerns about structural integrity. We need to put this behind us, but we need a solution that will be good, just like the sheriff's building, for 30 years. I can't in good conscience come in and present stuff to you that I know is going to be relatively short term, and some future board is going to have to deal with it. We would like to get permanent solutions to these problems, but I think we're going to be able to bring you, I've got staff working on it, a report that will take care of the water quality and the wastewater issues and satisfy the consent order. And as it appears now, that we would be able to do that without increasing rates. So if that's true, the Plantation Bay utility problem should be a thing of the past sometimes in May, that we would get that resolved. I do have a meeting tomorrow with the Hammock area residents, the association, to go over where our current findings have led us with regard to that, get their input on Bing's Landing, and maybe settle questions that might still be out there. Several were asked tonight, which there are answers on. There were some misassumptions tonight that we would need to put to rest if possible. But I look forward to a productive meeting. The last meeting I had with them was productive, and I hope to have the same tomorrow. I am meeting with the city manager of Palm Coast. It's to get to know each other, but it's also to kind of outline a general skeleton of the things that we need to move closer together in cooperation with. So hopefully to give you a report on that meeting later on. And with regard to Waste Pro, something's got to change. Either that has to really improve or we have to seek an entirely different solution. And with that ends my report.
But if nothing else, we need to be about service to the residents, so we got to kick butt on Waste Pro and get that solved.
Yeah, they had some solution. They said they were running out of people, and they tried to change their routes around and stuff, but it didn't get any better. It didn't get any better.
Well, when you're in a service organization, you got to have enough people to perform the service. Moving them to different places doesn't work too.
Okay. Does that conclude your report?
That concludes my report.
Okay, Mr. Hadid.
I don't have any report. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, there was one more thing. Had it on a separate page. On our rural capital assistance grant that comes up yearly, we have a grant amount of $130,693. There's no local match. They gave the application to us relatively late, and it's due before our next meeting. So since there's no match and it's something that supports our transportation system, I have authorized Ms. Petito to go ahead and execute the application, and we'll ratify it at the next meeting. I don't generally like doing that, but sometimes the people that are giving you the grant put you in a situation that you either have to call a special meeting or you have to do a ratification. And in this case, since it's pretty straightforward and something that we're obviously going to do, I've taken the liberty of telling her to sign that, and we'll bring it to you next meeting for ratification.
Okay.
I signed off on it. She asked me earlier in the meeting, so that's already moving.
Oh, good. So you get to go to jail first.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I like that.
I'll be a bus driver.
Good. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I'll be a witness.
Yes, sir. Okay. So we'll move to item 10C on the agenda, which is commission action. Anything, commissioners, that is action we need to act upon. Were we missing? No, I'm sorry. Yeah. Any action items?
I have nothing other than to echo the comment on the Waste Pro. I mean, they've had trouble with Palm Coast. They have trouble with us, so they have trouble.
I have nothing, sir.
Just one item that is action over time, and that is I attended one of our citizens had to go through the Veterans Court in Daytona. I think it was last week. Ed was there with me, and I don't want the idea of bringing a Veterans Court to Flagler County to go away. It looks like things are looking good for an additional judge for Flagler County. If that is approved, I think we would be in good stead where we could then bring that item back up. We do have a placeholder in the budget of about $25,000 to support that, and therefore I don't want that to go away. It was very informative to see how Volusia was handling it right now. Excellent judge there, and we don't want to have our veterans who are poor and many times to have to go down to Volusia to do their training. It's not so much the actual Veterans Court appearance, it's the repeated training they have to go through for sometimes a year, and having them have to go all the way to Volusia makes it difficult. So I just don't want that to die, so I consider it an ongoing action item.
Okay. Commissioner Mullins, anything on action items, not reports, but action?
No action.
Okay. All right, and I have none. So we'll move to community outreach portion. Again, this is a 30-minute time period allocated for public comment for items not on the agenda. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to address the commission. Speakers should approach the podium, identify themselves, and direct comments to the chair.
Hi, I'm Joy Ellis. I live in the Hammock.
Welcome.
Good evening, Commissioners and Mr. Chairman. I wanted to ask for the Commissioners to state your position in regard to the ESL purchased properties. ESL properties are purchased with taxpayer funds voluntarily added to their property taxes. This is something you're well aware of. And I think that you also know that Bing's Landing was the first purchase with ESL funds. It was that first purchase at Bing's Landing was the central portion of the park, and it was totally purchased with ESL funds. The restaurant and the expansion are all within that central portion, which is the most active portion of Bing's Landing. As we move forward, I think really the taxpayers need to know what your position is in regard to these ESL properties. In addition, the request for the inspection came 45 days ago from our attorneys. While I understand that you have had one inspection done by a structural engineering firm, that report had many caveats at the beginning of it. And obviously, we would be willing that any structural engineer that would be hired would be approved by you and accompanied by county staff. We have over 1,700 people who are counting on us to represent their opposition to this expansion, and this would be something that would help us restore their faith in what has gone before. I was at a previous commission meeting, and at that commission meeting, Commissioner Mullins said something about an investigation, establishing an investigation in regard to the Sheriff's Department and in regard to Plantation Bay Water. And I would like this captain situation added to that investigation. It's a request that I would like to make. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Any other speakers for the community outreach portion?
Good evening, Commissioners. Ed Fuller, Palm Coast. I want to echo Honorable O'Brien and Honorable Commissioners. I want to just say you have the cutest little grandkids I've ever seen, Commissioner O'Brien.
I do. Thank you.
Next to mine. That said, I just want to say something. I participated in the Sheriff's Safety Expo over at the European Village. And as a board member of the Crime Stoppers organization, I want you to know that you had funded extra deputies in the schools So I took an unscientific survey when the kids came up to the booth and asked them a very important question. Do you know your security resource officer? 80% of those kids said, yes, they do. And the interaction with them, they not only knew them, but they knew their name. And the interaction, you could see in the answers and the faces on those kids, they have a great rapport with those kids. So that program is working. So the funds that you allocated, I just telling you, it's unscientific, but they knew their names, and it's a big deal, especially when you allocate that kind of funds. Second thing I want to do, near and dear to my heart, is Commissioner Sullivan. I had the privilege of going to the graduation for the Flagler County veteran, and it's always a moving thing for me because I owe you veterans everything. And we need to have it here. We should have it here. I don't ever want to see a veteran go to Volusia County again and go before a judge down there who's wonderful, by the way. Judge Feigenbaum is an excellent, excellent judge. But our veterans deserve better. You wrote a check, and one of the things I think it was in the Private Ryan says, earn it. I think I'm trying to earn it. We really do need this Veterans Court here. So it's going to be a pervading theme for me, but it's because of the respect that I have for all the veterans that I'm here today. So please keep that on the radar screen. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Next speaker, please.
Dennis McDonald. I wanted to talk to you about the permitting process at Bing's. I've been watching this whole thing for 5 months, and it kind of baffles me, having been a general contractor in 4 other states. Okay, it's never been any different, and it's no different than it is here in Florida. Why do you make this so hard on yourselves? Okay, you didn't need to have this discussion if you're going to build a new building until you can figure out how you're going to discharge the waste. That's the first thing you have to have a building permit. You can't have a discussion. Any state I've ever worked in, you can't go to wetlands, you can't go to zoning, you can't go see anybody until you've got a permit to discharge to the ground. And so you guys have really taken a beating for no reason at all, because you needed to know if you're going to build a new facility, you got to know where you're going to send the waste to. And you know that that is not controlled by this county. That is controlled by the state. It's controlled by by essentially Bob over at the health department. He's, that's where all this stuff goes. And so I think you've kind of abused yourself, and you didn't need to until you got some real hard answers as how this was going to happen. Because if you were to put an on-site septic system in there, it would have to be raised because it has to be of a certain level now. And so it kind of would look like this massive cake in the middle of your park over there. And so, what I was going to suggest to you is just to kind of make things a little easier on all of you is that why don't you just kind of delay all this until you can figure out where the permit to discharge is going to come from. Is it going to come from a septic? If it's going to come from some type of sewer line, whether it be from the city, is Dunes really going to give them the ability to discharge into their plant? Nobody's got any answers on this. And in the meantime, you're taking a lot of heat, beating yourself up, and wasting a lot of time. So just a suggestion, and that's why I waited to the end to comment, because I didn't know what you were going to say, Mr. Chairman, with the comments that were brought up about Bing's. And I haven't said that much about it at all. But I'm just saying is that it doesn't have to be this hard, and you can just kind of delay it, because maybe you don't have a decision to make. Because if it's going to be a new building, you've got to have a whole new system, okay? And you've got to have that permit to start any type of discussion at all. So thanks very much.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from the public? All right, seeing no one approach the podium, I will close the community outreach of our portion of our agenda, and we'll finish up with item 10E, which is commission reports and comments, and start with you, Mr. Erickson.
I have nothing.
I have nothing.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention a couple of things. It was a busy week for some of us. I attended the Palm Coast kind of State of the City address with our county administrator. I think it was last Thursday. I have a copy of it. What I think is that they did an excellent job on presenting their situation, and it was excellently done, professionally done. I just point that out as something I think we should evolve here in the county, such a presentation that points out where we are and where we're going, that kind of thing. So I saw that. A couple of us were at the Walk a Mile in Her Shoes Saturday morning. Sheriff's Public Safety Expo was Saturday. All good events, well attended. And I did hit the 12th annual Picnic and Pop Sunday evening with the Jacksonville Symphony, which is the 12th annual, about 1,000 people there. It's a great event, and highly recommend that we have supported it. And I mentioned the Veterans Court. That's it.
Thank you, Commissioner Sullivan. Commissioner Mullins?
I better pick up the pace. You're catching me. I better get going on more things. Commissioner Sullivan, I did hear about you attending that from the mayor and from several people over at the city, and they were thankful that someone showed up from the county. I know some of us were out of town, but I really heard some good things about that. The Flagler Opioid Task Force meeting is on 4/23 at 6 p.m., the Flagler County Opioid Task Force. There's also the Public Safety Coordinating Council. We will be talking about, as Commissioner Erickson said, the homelessness issue and suicide rate in Flagler County. The suicide rate, we lead the state, and it's time we address that. And this commission is going to be known for one that addresses problems, not pushes them under, as long as I'm able to make an effort to it. Plantation Bay Water, even though I've been gone the last 2 weeks, and I want to thank everyone for reaching out and the concerns. I've stayed in close contact with the county administrator and some of the other county employees. Very satisfied, Mr. Cameron, about the Plantation Bay Water and the efforts that are being made there to solve the whole problem, not just pieces of the problem. This was ignored way too long. It was a deal that should have not happened, and it happened. But you're showing, and the staff is showing, some great strides in cleaning this massive mess up. The city and county been speaking close to the mayor, and we had a great conversation with her the other day. It's a new day in Flagler County. We are working on some big stuff with economic development. Fiber, certainly everyone knows that I'm a big proponent of, and we're working on some things there together with the city, all the cities, to show the unification of Flagler County. There is no division going to be anymore. Sheriff's Ops Center, very proud of the decision made up here today. Several months ago, I said we need to solve this problem, and we're going to. We lived that out today. Bings, same thing. I know there's a lot of concern there. It's time to make a decision. It's time to do something with it. We need to be transparent. We need to be open with it, and it needs to be based on what's best for the county, not friends, not financial. It needs to be what's best on the county and the future of the county. I do have some town halls coming up. I've got Espanola, I've got South Flagler, I've got Bunnell and Hidden Trails, and they'll be posted on the Facebook page soon, letting everyone know. And then I do want to say this about the homelessness. We're working diligently on legislation, the LAP program that I've heard other cities use, legislation, evaluation, and then placement of them. But our assessment is what it actually is the word, but we're working on that. And the mayors of all the cities have been very cooperative. I know they may not feel like they respond a lot, but I have asked them to kind of let us take the lead in the Public Safety Coordinating Council, because this is a county-wide problem. It is not something that one city's doing. And when we address it at one place, if we don't address it with a true solution, they will just be we'll be moving them into different areas. And it's time to solve problems. The I will say this, Mr. Cameron, I am glad we've slowed the process down. Why anyone would have wanted to continue the path that we were continuing with the leadership and the management baffles me. But I am glad, and that's probably one of the best pushes that I've had, that I've done, and I'm very happy that you're here with us. But great days ahead of Flagler County, and showing that we are a county that is going to make decisions. We're going to bring solutions. And I also want to say this. I've been asked, and I was out of town, the tourism development issue that's going on. I do appreciate that being looked into. I know there were things that not one person in this county had brought up to me, but many people in this county had brought up. And I'm glad we have addressed it. I'm glad we're looking into it. And I think that these things, that when we run these committees and we run these groups, that we need to be paying attention and very closely what actions are going on, because the future of this county is guided by the five of us. And I am going to sit back and kind of wait and let it play out. But again, there's a lot of things that have happened in this county that I think need to be looked in. But as the citizens can make the decision of who they put up here in these seats, they need to be very, very cautious in doing that and making sure that the people are transparent, they have the best interests for the county, and they're going to move forward in the right direction for the next generation. But I want to say I'm glad to be back, and it's time to get focused on Flagler.
You good?
Yeah, I'm done.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Commissioner.
Chairman.
All right, and thank you all, commissioners, for comments.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have anything from my side. So
No dessert.
With that, I'll
Move to adjourn.
thank you.
Second.
We're adjourned. Thanks.